Training Baseball 2022 from Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. And this afternoon, a split telecast. It's the Miami Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals on Bally Sports. And welcome inside Roger Dean Stadium. I'm Dan McLaughlin of the Cardinals telecast with my buddy Brad Thompson. And for the Marlins, it's Tommy Hutton. And Tommy, it's your first telecast of the season on Bally Sports Florida. So let's talk about the Marlins. What are your expectations in 2022?
You know, Dan, what I like are the acquisitions the Marlins have been able to make. They picked up Joey Wendell. They got a Gold Glove catcher in Jacob Stallings. Added some muscle to the middle of the lineup of Isael Garcia and also Jorge Soler. So a couple of guys who really can pound the ball. Good additions to this lineup.
Well, both these teams in spring training are 3-0. And for Brad, the Cardinals have Dakota Hudson going on the mound today.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing Dakota Hudson this year. We know how great he can be. Ground ball guy. We've got one of the better defenses in all of baseball. So the key for Dakota, coming off of Tommy John surgery, had 2 appearances last year. Throw strikes, keep the ball down, and he's going to be in good shape.
All right, that's Tommy. Brad, I'm Dan, and away we go. Spring Training Baseball 2022 from Roger Dean Stadium. It's the Miami Marlins. It's the St. Louis Cardinals. Starting lineups. First pitch comes your way next. The scene is Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. 25 years now, the Marlins and the Cardinals have occupied and split this facility. It is a beautiful day for baseball in southern Florida. 78 degrees. The wind is blowing in from right field a little bit towards left. And with Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, on Dan McLaughlin, and there's a look at the manager and the longest tenured manager in the history of the Marlins, Donnie Baseball, Tommy, and he's back again, Don Mattingly.
You know, Dan, it's amazing that Don Mattingly's in his 7th year now managing the Marlins. Of course, he managed the Dodgers for 5 years, had 3 straight 90-win seasons there. But I think it's a good mix for the players that have come through Miami. And Don Mattingly, they all respect, believe me.
Chisholm, Diaz, Garcia, Aguilar, Rojas, Astidoa, Sanchez, Henry, and De La Cruz, the lineup. And Ali Marmol in his first season as the skipper of the Cardinals. And Brad, he just might go undefeated.
Well, it seems like it, right? Things are going well, but Donnie Baseball's doing the same thing. A couple of teams off to some good starts, but I know that Ali is pumped up for this opportunity, and the team, well, they respond well to him. He communicates well, and I think it's going to be a great season for Ali Marmol.
Dakota Hudson is on the mound for St. Louis. The 27-year-old returned from Tommy John surgery a year ago, and he's 1 win away from 25 in his career.
Yeah, how nice is it to see Dakota Hudson back? This guy came back for a couple of games last year, looked really good, but they're going to need him. They're going to need him to go out there and get a bunch of ground balls, eat up some innings for him. The Hyundai pitch arsenal here for Dakota Hudson. Oh, you look at that 2-seamer. He's going to throw a lot of that thing. He'll run the 4-seamer up. Good slider, change up, been working on a little cutter as well. His stuff is good.
You know, I think when you see a guy coming back from Tommy John surgery, Brad and Dan, you want to see strength built up. And that's what you look for in every pitcher. It always takes the time. There's no rushing Tommy John surgery. So that's what I'm sure Cardinal fans want to see in Hudson.
And he'll be pitching to Andrew Kisner here today. Yadier Molina returned to camp for his 19th season, but says that he's probably 4 or 5 days away from game action. So a lot of Andrew Kisner, and in the outfield it's Donovan, Carlson, Burleson. On the infield, a good one, Arenado, DeYoung, Edman, and Goldie. So a lot of gold out there, and I see you smiling, Tommy. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking Yachty's been here almost as long as Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium.
It's incredible.
I've had multiple different career ventures since Yachty has been doing his thing. No, and you should, I mean, the ovation here at camp when Yachty did arrive yesterday, it's not just the assembled media, but it was the players so excited. The embrace by Adam Wainwright that we've seen so many times. It was just a fun day here at camp.
So leading it off, hitting from the left side, Jazz Chisholm. Combination of both speed and power. Real good-looking young player at the top of the lineup for the Miami Marlins with a shift on the right side of the infield. And the first pitch is taken low, and we're underway.
You know, he had 18 home runs last year. He had 23 stolen bases. But one of the things he's working on, he dropped down a beautiful bunt the other day against Max Scherzer for a base hit.
How about Max Scherzer going 5 innings? 5 innings in his spring debut.
Sometimes they're built a little bit different, aren't they, Tommy? I think Max Scherzer fits that bill.
He did more than negotiate during the lockout.
So the Marlins last year 67 and 95 after reaching the playoffs in the shortened season of 2020, and that is taken low, and it's 2 balls and 1 strike on Chisholm. Now Nolan Arenado well off the line, and even with the bag at third. Outfield shallow, and the exaggerated shift on the right side. The 2-1 pitch by Dakota Hudson, taken for a ball. Expectations for Dakota pretty high this year.
Yeah, they are. And this, you mentioned all the Gold Glovers that are out there. Well, that fits right into what Dakota Hudson tries to do. The key is going to be filling up the strike zone. I thought he looked good around the zone in his couple of appearances last year, but he's got a chance to get so many outs early in the counts. You don't want to see a bunch of 3-1 counts here and there, but it's his first outing in the spring.
Ground ball hit to the right side, taken there by the shortstop Paul DeYoung, in the first out. Well, when he's right, you're going to see a bunch of that, ground balls.
You're going to see a lot of ground balls and a lot of firewood, because he can get in on the hands of lefties and righties. That ball, it's just that heavy. You hear about a sinker ball, you hear about just the heavy ball. Well, Dakota Hudson's got one of those.
Well, Tommy, when you look at the Marlins, their pitching can stack up with just about anybody in the game. The question will be about the offense and where it's at.
Yeah, when you talk about their top 3 with Sandy Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, and Pablo Lopez, you're right. That's going to stack up against a lot. It's going to be tough in the National League East to do that. And they've added, as we talked about in our open, they've added some meat in the middle of the lineup, which is good because they were second to last in the major leagues in runs scored last year.
1 ball and 1 strike. Lewin Diaz. Initially, it was Garrett Cooper in this spot, but arbitration cases being heard, so a couple of scratches for the Marlins, and that was Garrett Cooper and also Brian Anderson. So not health-related, Tommy, and that's good news, obviously, for the Marlins. The 2-1 pitch fouled back 2-2.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way everything's been backed up with the lockout, with the delay in opening day. Arbitration cases weren't able to be heard, so guys are having that happen right now. So yeah, a couple of guys having to exit the lineup at the last minute.
And while it wasn't said that was the case, you got a couple of arbitration eligible players for the Cardinals not in the lineup today, Bader and O'Neill.
I don't know if it depends.
It's off the plate, and it count runs now full on Diaz, with Garcia, the former Brewer, on deck. Beautiful day here at Roger Dean, and the 3-2 pitch. Check swing and did not go, so 1-out walk. So Garcia is one of the big bats brought in by Miami. We saw him a bunch, Tommy, last year in the NL Central with the Brewers. Had very good numbers against the Cardinals, and he signs a big contract to come over. And Marlins have spent some money too, with Soler coming just within the last couple of days as well.
Yeah, it was official today with Jorge Soler, and with Garcia. A couple of right-handed bats are certainly respected around baseball for their power.
So 1 out and a runner at first. And Garcia takes a pitch up and in.
I think initially the talk was the Marlins were seeking a center fielder, and with a guy like Garcia, he can play center field. They have a number of guys who can play center field. Whether they have a pure center fielder, we'll find that out.
Starling Marte was there, then dealt to Oakland, signed in the offseason as a free agent with the Mets. One of many signed by New York. And that's fouled back. 1 ball and 1 strike. And it brings to mind just some of the signings right now in the National League East. Kyle Schwarber. You look at the money spent by the Mets. Nick Castellanos also to the Phillies. This is going to be one tough division.
It always is. Of course, the Mets will come at you with DeGrom and Scherzer. The Braves, I think, have gotten better.
Just added Kenley Jansen within the last week. Shifted after the departure of Freddie Freeman. It's going to be odd not seeing Freddie Freeman wearing a Braves uniform.
And seeing him in a Dodger uniform.
It doesn't seem right, does it?
It doesn't.
I know,
but baseball-wise, if you look at it purely baseball-wise, it was a good move for Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good player, younger player.
Kind of had to act quick, didn't you, too? You couldn't just wait out the whole thing with Freddie Freeman. The last thing you want to do as a team that just won a World Series and has a chance to compete for another one is be left without that big bat over at first base. I thought the pivot was a good one.
2-1 the count. They hold it first, playing up the middle, the second baseman, Tommy Edman, and that's lined foul down the right field line and out of play. They've added the netting all the way down the left and right field lines here at Roger Dean Stadium, a new addition to this ballpark.
Yeah, I think one of the best moves baseball did over the last few years.
No question.
By the way, Freddie's not going to go into a bad lineup in L.A. either.
No, he's going to see some pitches to hit.
Yeah.
I can't think of a better lineup maybe ever. I mean, that might be one of the best lineups we've seen.
And that's tap foul. I think right now you'd have to say it's the best lineup in baseball, unquestionably. The American League East, too. Look at what the Blue Jays have done. Boston, they made a big move getting Trevor Story. Then you look at the Yankees, always loaded. So both the East divisions, the American and the National Leagues, are loaded.
Yeah, then you have the Tampa Bay Rays, who nobody ever talks about, and they win 90 games.
Yeah. Figure that out.
Bunch of different ways to do it, right? And everybody's trying to figure out how the Rays do it with their payroll.
And a strikeout of Garcia, caught looking. First strikeout of the afternoon for Dakota Hudson.
Really nice, well-placed sinker down and away, 93 miles an hour from Dakota Hudson. And I already like what we've seen. He's thrown a few pitches here in this inning, but he's working in and out really well, trying to spot up on both sides, mixing in the four-seam and that sinker there. Looks like it's going to stay off the plate and comes back.
Jesus Aguilar, familiar with the Marlins. A couple of different times he has worn that Miami uniform.
Bit of a character, isn't he, Tommy?
Boy, he's fun to be around. Always comes to the ballpark with a smile. 93 RBIs last year. He would have had 100. His year was cut short a little bit with a knee injury toward the end. But he's the kind of guy, we talk so much nowadays about guys with launch angle and striking out a lot. He's the kind of guy, if there's a runner in scoring position, he'll go the other way. He'll shoot the ball the other way, pick up that run.
And a high fly ball lifted into right field. Burleson called off by Dylan Carlson. He's in center today. Marlins strand a runner. Cardinals coming up in the home half of the first. Spring training baseball. Many of the regulars for Ali Marmol in the lineup today, including the switch hitting Tommy Edman at the top, then Paul Goldschmidt, Dylan Carlson, Nolan Arenado, DeYoung, Kisner, Yepes, Donovan, and Burleson. And they will face Jesus Luzardo. He was among baseball's highest rated pitching prospect when he was coming through the A system. And Miami picked him up. What'd you think, Tommy, when you saw him?
Well, I tell you, it was really fun watching the 24-year-old last year. He had some good outings. He had some poor outings. But when he was good, he was outstanding. And if he is able to get the consistency with a good fastball, a breaking ball, and a changeup, this fastball lights it up. It can go 95 plus, but sometimes he has to learn to pitch a little bit better. Came over from Peru. He was born in Peru, but came over when he was 1. And guess what? He became a Marlins fan.
And here he is, pitching for his hometown team, if you will.
I think you hit the key number with him, too, Tommy. 24. I mean, he's had some big league experience already, but there's a lot left.
So really, it is about control with him. He's got good stuff.
You look at him, you talk to scouts, and they'll say he has the stuff to be a number 1.
Well, it's hard not to get excited if you're a Marlins fan about the pitching and the rotation specifically because of Sandy Alcantara and Trevor Rogers, this young man, and some of the others. Pablo Lopez, another one that comes to mind. I mean, they've got good pitching.
Yeah, they do. Eliezer Hernandez, who pitched yesterday for the first time, he'll be in that mix. And then, of course, in this day and age of baseball, during the course of the year, you're going to use 8 or 9, 10 guys to start games.
And a swing and a miss as Tommy Edman is the first out here in the home half of the first. This pitch was nasty.
Yeah, we talked about the breaking ball and the changeup. And if Jesus Luzardo can mix all of those in, he's going to be tough. And that looked like the breaking ball. He calls it a slider, but it's slow enough. It could be a curve, too.
There's Paul Goldschmidt. Exceptional second half of the Cardinals, and a big part of why they won 17 in a row. Franchise record down the stretch and made it into postseason play. Popped up to the right side and out of play.
What a fun run that was.
It's incredible. What do you guys think? Do we expand rosters early on because of some of the issues that we're talking about, having a later spring and trying to get these starters at least through 5, 6, 7 innings?
I would say yes for the first month. What, go up to 27 instead of 26? At least 27. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I would agree. It only makes sense. Protect yourself. Protect your investments. I know you end up spending a little bit more money doing so, adding a guy or two to the roster, but it's worth it in the long run. These guys have had this expedited spring training. You might as well do it.
Of course, Brad, everything's always done around the pitchers, so go ahead and admit
As it should be, Tommy.
The 2-2. Missed down and in, and a full count on Paul Goldschmidt. Really an interesting article put together by Derek Gould of the Post-Dispatch, in particular about the bat handle being used this season by Goldie. And that's it out of play. It's a bigger knob of the bat, also a little weight differential with the bat, but there's a look at the knob, and that's something that he had never used before and is trying it out and likes it. Ripped and off the glove of the second baseman. Chisholm stays with it, and out number 2. Hit it that hard, you got plenty of time.
It's a little more old school, Dan, with that handle like that. A little more old school that way.
It looked like they just got it right off the lathe.
Yeah,
they never.
They didn't finish.
Never finished it. Yeah.
Tommy, when you were playing, there's a look at the Marlins defense. Let's say you got to end of August in September. Would you go with a lighter bat?
Well,
guys
not for me because I didn't play that much. But guys who were in there every day, yes, they would go to a lighter bat.
Sure. These guys are trying to find out, and everything's measured with exit velocity and various things with the bat, and they find that with this bat they can add a little miles per hour off the bat. So exit velocity is about, you're hitting the ball harder.
Well, that last line drive was hit pretty hard.
Yeah. Good start for Dylan Carlson, and a home run in Port St. Lucie. He said it measured at 420 feet, but they then came back and said that those that were there said, now wait a minute, if left field or that area is around 370 and it went to all the way to the backfields, it's around 450 to 500 feet. They said it was just a mammoth shot against the Mets.
This could be this breakout year for Dylan Carlson. I think that he already had shades of that last year, as he came in third in the Rookie of the Year voting.
And a ground ball that's hit to short. To his left, the sure-handed Miguel Rojas, good player, makes the play. Cardinals go 1-2-3. Inning in the books. Marlins and Cardinals spring training baseball. We are scoreless here at Roger Dean Stadium. Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, Dan McLaughlin. We love doing this. It's a split feed, so you're seeing us on Bally's Sports Florida, Bally's Sports Midwest. And Tommy, for your fans throughout this region, they're going to get a lot of you this year. You're back in the booth.
Yeah, I'll be back about 50 games in the booth. Looking forward to it. Myself, J.P. Arancibia, Gabby Sanchez, Rod Allen, Jeff Nelson. We're all going to help out. Paul Severino needs all the help he can get. So they decided to get all of us to help him out.
Well, is that a shot at Paul? I know he's watching.
I wouldn't do that.
I know. I'm just making sure. one of the great people in our game, Paul Severino, so he'll be back behind the mic as well. Here's Miguel Rojas, the shortstop of the Marlins. I mentioned going to break, the sure-handed Miguel Rojas does not get enough credit for just how good of a defensive player he is.
You know, you're absolutely right. He has been a team leader. He got a lot of guys together during the lockout. They were working out. And I think because he's not the huge offensive shortstop that we see a lot in the game today, he doesn't get the recognition for his defense.
Near the screen and dropping foul. Goldschmidt giving chase, and Rojas still alive. Well, Brad, with Dakota Hudson, we did see him at the tail end of last season, so that was good to get maybe just the feeling for him coming off of Tommy John, something that you had. Hey, I'm healthy, I'm back, have a normal off season. So how cautious will the Cardinals be with him this year in terms of innings?
Well, you have to be. You have to be able to watch the innings. You have to watch the workload. And I don't know if there's a hard and fast number that they want to hit, but he's part of your future, so you got to be able to take care of it.
And the 1-2 backhanded by Nolan Arenado, slings it over to Goldie. 5 Gold Glovers last year for the Cardinals. And that was one of them, Nolan Arenado.
You just see the look of defeat on hitters if anything goes the direction of Nolan Arenado. He makes all these plays look so routine, Tommy. It's a nice weapon to have.
Well, I tell you what, I've enjoyed watching him over the years. 9 Gold Gloves for Arenado. Makes it look so easy. Makes it look easy. I had an opportunity to play with Mike Schmidt. Won a lot of Gold Gloves. He made it look pretty easy, too.
Who's the best you've ever seen?
I have to say Mike.
Yeah.
To go with Schmitty because I played with him. We were teammates.
Yeah.
And that's where I land on Scott Rowland.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And here we
no
are.
argument there.
Yeah, here we are watching Nolan Arenado do his thing. And I think that'll be a debate that goes on for quite some time. Obviously, others in that debate.
Williams, Astudillo, and a swing and a miss. But Brooks Robinson obviously would be in that conversation as well.
Absolutely.
Scott Rowland is edging closer to the Hall of Fame at, I believe, 53.2% of the vote this last year. And now you have some of the players coming off the ballot. So just looking at the natural progression of others that have been voted in, he's going to be either in or the cusp of Cooperstown next year.
I agree. I think the next couple of years will be good for Scott Rowland.
What a fabulous player he was. 2 balls and 1 strike with 1 out and nobody on. And that is tapped foul.
Astudillo is a guy the Marlins picked up a couple of weeks ago. He's been with the Twins organization. Swings the bat a little bit. Can play third, can play a little first, can catch a little bit. So it has an outside chance to make this ball club.
Well, Tommy, we saw him in interleague play last year. He destroyed the Cardinals. He had some big games against St. Louis. And the 2-2 is tapped foul. He can hit. It's one of the things that they talked about this time in the American League is just trying to find a spot for him. And now with the DH in the NL, you might see him there.
I think we'll see different rosters made up this year in the National League because of the DH.
You guys all in on the DH?
Yeah. I'll get there. I think I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
You play winning baseball, I think, Tommy, it's a lot easier to just get in on it.
You know what? I'm old school, but I'm in on it because pitchers can't hit anymore.
Yeah.
We're gone are the days where young kids hit in high school. They don't even hit in high school now. So how do you expect them to hit up here?
And the 2-2 is hit out of play. Just below us and to our right in the stands, a guy that could swing the bat fairly well. Local kid. Pretty good hitter, pretty good pitcher in Ricky Ankiel. Down there in the seats and taking in Cardinal baseball. He'll be part of our pre- and post-game telecast on Valley Sports Midwest this year.
Rick's been a big part of this Palm Beach County community. I know he's helped us out at the Tommy Hutton Baseball Academy a few times. Great to know. Great kid.
You were telling us, who is that? Ollie Marmol.
Yeah.
Who's now managing the big leagues.
You're manager now. 2016, when he was, I believe, managing the Cardinals here in Jupiter, helped out all summer and ran the baseball academy.
That's incredible. And now here he is, the youngest manager in Major League Baseball, in Ali Marmol. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Well, you're talking about this earlier, Brad. You don't want to see deep counts with Hudson. You'd like to see him pitch to the contact that we mentioned, that if he's got 5 Gold Glovers behind him and the kind of defense the Cardinals play, you want to see strikes.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And the thing is, though, in a spring training game, you never know exactly what a guy is trying to work on, too. Because like you mentioned, Dakota Hudson actually had himself a normal offseason.
Ground ball hit sharply to third, taken by Arenado. Throw up the line, put on the bag by Goldie, and there's 2 away. Download the MLB app to get in-game video highlights, live pitch by pitch, breaking news, player updates, stat leaderboards, and more for your favorite team.
Yeah, I was just thinking, when you come back to the dugout after ground ball that was just hit, the last 2 actually, guys in the dugout just say, wrong guy. You know, you smoked the ball, but you hit it to the wrong guy. Arenado.
Well, this might be, Tommy, the best defensive team in baseball. 5 Gold Glovers from a year ago. Their normal lineup would include Carlson in right. He's in center today. But you have Bader, who won a Gold Glove. O'Neill won a Gold Glove in left. Tommy Edman took over for Colton Wong, wins the Gold Glove at second. And then your corner spots, Gold Glovers. Guy behind the plate normally, Yadier Molina, he's not too shabby. And DeYoung and Sosa split time last year. And if you look at the sabermetric look at how they played analytically, they were really good, well above average. So this is a tremendous defensive team.
It was 81 defensive runs saved last year by the Cardinals. That's far and away the most in the National League. And while they want to continue to add more offensively, and we saw it in the second half of the year, the last couple of months, the offense picked it up a bit. That's still going to be a hallmark of what they do. Because what shows up in the postseason? It's pitching and defense.
Pitching and defense, yep. Bullpens
For
really
sure.
show up.
The 2-1 pitch. And a pitch taken high by Jesus Sanchez. A couple of different stints with the Marlins a year ago. His second stint was very good. And Marlins think he could be a contributor here in 2022. And the 3-1 is lined into right, and that'll be a base hit.
That's going to keep Jesus Sanchez around. 14 home runs last year in his 64 games. He's actually getting an opportunity to show Don Mattingly he can play center field a little bit too, because that's a position in the outfield they're looking for. Solid swing, put together some nice at bats. He made a good adjustment. He's another one of those players. He's kind of like Aguilar, always has a terrific smile on his face. Loves to be out here.
And the catcher is Peyton Henry today, batting 8th in this lineup. Marlins added Jacob Stallings from the Pirates in the offseason. Had issues last year, the Marlins did, with pass balls. That was certainly problematic, and so now you get one of the best defensive catchers in the game.
Quietly, I thought one of the best moves they made.
He's a good player.
You know, when you have a pitching staff, when you build your organization around pitching, you need a guy like Stallings behind the plate.
It's really that calming factor, right? You got to walk some of these guys through it while they're talented. The group is still young, right, Tommy? So you're absolutely right. Having that guy, and that's why the Cardinals have been so fortunate with Yadier Molina for the last 17 years.
I talked to Stallings a little bit the other day, and trying to acquaint himself with the pitchers was a little harder during the lockout. He wasn't able to get access to a lot of video and things like that, so he wants to catch these guys as much as possible here in the spring.
And that's it out of play. I do wonder if the regulars will play more in this spring training than we've ever seen, just because guys have limited time to get ready for opening day.
Yeah, I think so.
So for the Cardinals, first time through, in terms of their rotation, they've been sending their starters out for a couple of innings and then get them out of there, which is typical to start a spring training. But before you know it, April 7th is here.
It is coming.
It's fought off into shallow center, and Dylan Carlson is there to make the catch. Marlins strand a runner midway through 2. spring training baseball. The Marlins and the Cardinals. Nolan is coming up. Scoreless as we move to the home half of the second inning. Cardinals, the home team today in a complex that is shared by both the Marlins and the Cardinals. In the second inning of work for the Marlins lefty, who enjoyed a 1-2-3 in the first. It'll be Arenado, DeYoung, and Kisner for St. Louis. Early impressions of camp for you, Brad. What have they been so far?
Well, you know what I really liked, and it's something we were talking about a minute ago, as the season is going to get on you quickly, is just kind of the excitement and the urgency around camp. A lot of times you can see the teams that kind of go through the motions a little bit. There's so much pep in everything they're doing right now. I was watching some of the early work on the backfields yesterday in the stadium today as they're playing a game. The guys are raring to go. There was so much uncertainty, Tommy, surrounding this season that as soon as they got that call, they were locked and loaded.
Yeah, I agree, and I think so many players of today are closer to being ready when they get to spring training. And I don't think we're going to have that lull. You know, hey, usually have a lull about the third or fourth week in
Be about
camp.
this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's kind of a race to the finish, and all of a sudden it's opening day. Marlins opening up with the Phillies, and the Cardinals will open up at home, and that'll be against Pittsburgh. 1 ball and 1 strike for Nolan Arenado, and he grounds it sharply to third. And there's 1 away.
I think, too, the modern day player keeps himself in shape all year round. And there were so many groups I know here in the Palm Beach County. There were groups working out up here, guys throwing bullpens, guys taking live BP. Down in Miami, guys were getting together and working out. So they came to camp in pretty good shape.
You know, during the shutdown of 2020, you could drive by a ballpark here in Florida, and this is DeYoung. And if you went by that park and you saw cars that were the most expensive you've ever seen, you were probably going to see one of the great pickup games you've ever seen at that ballpark. These guys were just trying to stay sharp. Many of these players live in this area year-round. That pitch taken up and in by DeYoung. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Well, you're right. Jorge Soler, who just signed a 3-year contract with the Marlins, last year's World Series MVP, lives in Miami. I heard his wife is ecstatic that they can stay at home.
Hit down the left field line and out of play.
And Dan, I thought when you were talking about expensive cars that they were talking about you would be there broadcasting the game when they saw the expensive car.
You know what, Tommy, thought about it, and to borrow a phrase we heard during that year, when and where I would have been there.
That was young Danny Mac, isn't it? You're outside, the kids are playing ball, and you're sitting there calling it.
Oh yeah, that's how we do it. It is it's just, it's great. It's almost surreal to be back, because the last time I was in this booth, I want to say that the Cardinals that day, guys, they were the last professional game literally in the world. I mean, they shut down that game in 2020. I guess it was March 12th.
12th, I think. Yeah.
And we were about halfway through, and we did make it through the game, and that was it. So it's great for us to be back down here, and the fans to be back and enjoying baseball here at Roger Dean Stadium. And this time last year was limited capacity for the crowd, so we've got a nice crowd today. We were talking, we weren't sure what the crowds would be looking like with baseball coming back a little later than normal, as the 3-2 is fisted foul. You know, a lot of people, especially from St. Louis, will have their spring breaks or take a vacation down here. It's a chance to get out of the weather in the Midwest. And these crowds have been really good so far.
They said the same thing as you did. When and where? You let us know when that thing is signed. We're going to show up to Jupiter and root on our Cardinals.
And the 3-2 is popped up. Henry throwing the mask and then called off as the first baseman Aguilar comes in to make the catch.
Always like to judge swings when you see a pitcher get to a 3-2 count or even a 3-1 count. If the batter doesn't have a really good swing at the ball, you know the pitcher has something on, a little live fastball, a little cutter, maybe that gets inside. And that's something that Luzardo can do. Hudson did that in the first inning. 3-1 pitch to Jazz Chisholm. Got a little pitch in on him, broke his bat.
I think that was with Dakota Hudson one of his keys to success. You never want to lead the league in certain categories, and walks are one of those categories, which he did in 2019. But the numbers were still very good. Why? Because of what you're talking about. He's got so much movement anyhow. Even if he gets behind in a count, he was always that one pitch away, that one ground ball away.
There's Andrew Kisner. Made a home run last Friday and laces one up the middle. Backhanded by Chisholm. On a hop and makes the play. 1, 2, 3 go the Cardinals. 6 up and 6 down. We move to the third. Donnie Baseball. Don Mattingly. Back at it again. Nice crowd on hand today. The wind blowing in, as you can see there. Old Glory down the right field line, whipping towards the plate. And a new pitcher is in for St. Louis, and that's the 25-year-old Jake Woodford. The number 5 spot of the Cardinals in their rotation is unsettled with Jack Flaherty. He's going to miss some time, not break north with the club at the start of the season. So Woodford, one of those guys that certainly is in line to be at least talked about for that position.
Yeah, and as he should be, especially the way that he finished the season last year, Dan. I mean, he came out there and it was a good overall season, but the finish of it to me was the best. And there was one pivotal game, at least it looked like. It was September 21st against the Brewers. He came in and it was 5 1/3 in relief, and he just looked in command. Like, it just looked different. He carried that through the rest of the year, and I mean, he's looking up to eat up some innings, whether it be in the rotation or in the pen.
Cardinals with a shift on the left side. Brian De La Cruz is at the plate. More times than not, it seems like that shift is done with left-handed batters. In this case, the right-handed hitting De La Cruz. And who knows, maybe this time next year, no more shift being talked about.
Tommy, where do you stand on that with the shift, the evolution of it? And do you like it? Would you rather see it, you know, be managed a little bit?
I think managed a little bit. I think it'd be hard to eliminate it, but I think if you eliminate some of it, it creates more activity in a game, more excitement in a game if balls are put in play. And I think it'll get back. You need that Ozzie Smith type shortstop. You put a guy at shortstop, you put him in a shift where the analytics say that's where he's going to hit the ball. You don't have to have that athletic type guy out there.
Hit left side, long throw, Arenado, and he makes the play.
Yeah, I think you make a great point with the athleticism, Tommy, because I feel like in our game, and Ozzie Smith is a horrible comp, so we're not going to use him here. I'm not going to say that there's Ozzie Smith type talent out there. But we have bigger, stronger, faster athletes than we've had in a long time. But with the positioning, you don't necessarily get a chance to see all of that athleticism take over.
Well, pitching was just dominant again last year. Average major league game had nearly 9 strikeouts in the game. It actually had more strikeouts for the second year in a row than hits. So they'd love to see more action if you can. Top of the lineup again, and Chisholm grounded out to second his first time up. Shift on the right side, 1 away. A late swing there. 1 ball and 1 strike.
I've read some articles about making the bases a little bit larger, and I think that would create maybe more stolen base attempts. Maybe guys trying to get on, use the speed a little bit.
We see so many bang plays, don't we? I mean, that's the difference, because if you have a difference if they widen the bases, they're talking about 3 inches all the way around, 6-inch difference on a steal. How many plays do we see each and every game that are the difference of that?
You know, something that we saw last year was hit batters. Over 2,100 hit batters in the game. So when you think about, you know, guys, and this is a game of power.
You know why?
Tell me.
Because guys aren't pitchers anymore. They're throwers. They learn how to throw 98 miles an hour, and they don't know how to pitch it. I'm not sure where it's going all the time.
2-2 pitch. That's in the dirt. Full count.
I believe, Tommy, pitching in is incredibly important. Being able to do it, though, is a whole different animal, because you have some guys that know that they're supposed to try to throw in because that's the game plan. But if you can't execute in there, then it becomes very, very dangerous.
The full count on the leadoff man, Jazz Chisholm. Tapped foul. So Jake Woodford, former first-round selection out of high school, made his debut in the 2020 season. Didn't even know about it. The Cardinals, just like the Marlins, had gotten just decimated with COVID issues, and both teams got into postseason play. I don't know how, but it was an amazing run by both teams to be able to do that. And it was Woodford making his debut that season on the back end of, what was it, 13 doubleheaders, I believe, that the Cardinals had to play in, and that was against the White Sox.
Yes.
That was the first series back when the club had been shut down, and they just needed somebody to come in and give them innings, and it was Jake Woodford.
And he found out in between games. It wasn't
That's
like
right.
it was laid out beforehand saying, hey, you got this one, which I think oftentimes is almost better. You don't sit
Not
there
thinking about it.
You're not trying to like run through it mentally. You let your skills go out there and play, and Jake Woodford has plenty of them. I like that at bat right there against Jazz Chisholm too. Didn't want to let him get extended, kept working him in with the slider, ultimately getting him with the fastball.
You know, conversely, I thought a pretty good AB for Jazz. Work the count deep, which he needs to do. Try to get on base. He needs to try to get his on base percentage up a little bit, especially if he's in the leadoff spot.
Here's Diaz. Walked his first time up and then left stranded. And the 1-0 pitch on a hop towards Tommy Edman, and he'll make the play. 1-2-3 for Jake Woodford. Yepez, Donovan, Burleson coming up. 7, 8, and 9 for St. Louis. We're scoreless. Complex here at Roger Dean Stadium, Jupiter, Florida, shared by both the Miami Marlins and the St. Louis Cardinals. Bottom of the third rolls in, and that's where we spend so much of our time. Those backfields looking at what could be the stars of tomorrow coming up in the minor leagues.
You just never know, right? You get an opportunity to go out there before all the fanfare, before everybody's asking for an autograph, and see some of the future.
How about you, Tommy? But I love going back there and seeing the young players play.
Just like watching the guys go through the drills, and it's amazing how so many of the drills you could look back 40, 50 years, same drills.
Yes.
PFP. Nothing changes.
No,
right?
you're right. I was watching a bunch of it today as the Cardinals were doing their work here on the field at Roger Dean, and
PFP.
doing the PFPs, going through all of the bunt plays. You know, you just watch all of the wheels turning. But Tommy, you know this very well, as do you, Dan. You don't get a chance to work on these as much during the regular season, but there's a good chance that one of these plays that you work on here tirelessly could end up, you know, your season could end up hinging on it. A bunt play late in the season or come postseason. So the stuff is important.
Juan Yepez added to the 40-man roster at the tail end of last year. And one of those odd moves that you don't see very often, but added to the 40-man so he could be on the postseason roster, which is what the Cardinals did last year. He was on that postseason roster in the one-game playoff, which was a classic game against the Dodgers. Dodgers would win it in a walk-off, but Yepez did not hit or play in that game, and takes a pitch up and in, but had a monster season in the minor leagues last year.
27 home runs last year, Tommy. I mean, this guy's got big-time pop. He added another 7 in the Arizona Fall League, and he's pushing. They're going to give him opportunities to play in the outfield a little bit during this camp also.
That's it out of play.
Tommy, you mentioned it earlier, the idea of versatility, right? If you're going to make a roster, you got to do some different things. He's one of those guys that's going to get that chance.
Well, he's trying to adjust right now, and we've been watching Jesus Luzardo keep his fastball 97, 98. He's touched 99 a couple of times. The changeup's been around 90, around 88 miles an hour.
Tommy, he's throwing strikes.
And he's throwing strikes. It's key to the whole thing.
Yeah.
He's going to be a handful. This rotation's going to be a handful for the Marlins.
Well, I think, you know, when you look at the East, and we talked about it earlier, they're going to get a lot of the fanfare of some of the other teams outside of Miami, but great pitching can neutralize those great lineups. Out in front, pulls it to third, and Yepez the first out. Cardinals still looking for their first hit, and that is 7 up, 7 down for the starter Luzardo of the Miami Marlins.
Well, he had a start, his last start of the season, early October against the Phillies. He went 5 1/3 innings, gave up 6 hits, 1 run, didn't walk anybody, and struck out 11. So he finished the season strong, kind of starting this one out the same way.
And a fastball and a strike to Brendan Donovan. He's in left field today. And he's primarily been an infielder in the minor leagues. And another one of these young players the Cardinals are high on. They think eventually he does make it to the big leagues. He's in left field today.
Back to utility, right? He played right field last night against the Nationals. Left field today. Will play second. Will play third. Talk about impressive. And the guy on deck, Alec Burleson, also did this. Played at 3 levels last year. I mean, That's hard to do. You start in A ball, you end in AAA, and put up big time numbers. He's not just put on the 40-man roster just because. I mean, he's got a legit chance to crack the squad.
And that is hit out of play. With Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, I'm Dan McLaughlin. It is, well, it's a tradition unlike any other. The split telecast on Valley Sports Florida and Midwest.
Such a wonderful tradition.
Yes.
That I understand we're going to be back here Saturday too.
Well, we wanted it, and we asked for you specifically. Apparently, you didn't want to be a part of it, but then your bosses said, well, if you want to do some games this year, you will be a part of it, Tommy.
Yeah.
And so here you are. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. We'll be right in a groove by then. I don't know if we've gotten there yet, but we'll be there by Saturday.
That's right. We will get there. Luzardo appears to be in a groove, though. That was that big-time breaking ball again.
Yeah.
That pitch is nasty. I like looking at just watching him mechanically. It seems like he repeats everything really well with each one of his pitches.
Tell me if I'm wrong on this. Does he remind you of Francisco Liriano at all?
I can see that.
A little bit.
That's a little comp. That's pretty good.
Body type a little bit. Delivery.
I don't know if he has the Bugs Bunny changeup that he had.
Yeah, that changeup was nasty.
He's got a good one. Good changeup.
That's what he ended up getting Yepez on. It wasn't exactly where he wanted it, but it was a product of setting him up with all the other pitches.
Well, Tommy, you mentioned it. You know, you get a good look at some of the uncomfortable swings or where guys are at. There's some uncomfortable swings happening right now. He's trying to start this game 9 up and 9 down. He's got a pair of strikeouts, and that pitch taken high.
Well, the Marlins got a big boost yesterday. They saw their #1 pick from a couple of years ago, Max Meyer, came out and threw 4 innings, struck out 5, didn't give up a hit or a run. He's a right-hander, and he looked tremendous. Now, he won't start the year with the big club, but there's a good chance Max Meyer may show up in Miami before the year's over.
Count of 3 balls and 1 strike. We're in the bottom of the 3rd. 2 outs, nobody on, and the 3-1 pitch to Burleson is popped foul and out of play.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking you're talking about Donovan and Burleson, 2 guys, you know, trying to make the club, and they're lefties. So they get the call against a tough lefty. That's the way my spring trainings went.
Go get him.
I'd come in for 1AB and it'd be against a tough lefty.
Softly hit to the right side. That's 9 up and 9 down.
Nice job.
And we move to the 4th. Marlins and Cardinals spring training, and we're scoreless. They are back for another season in their legendary careers. Saturday, April 9th, 25,000 fans, 16 and up, take home one of 4 mystery Wainwright and Molina jerseys, courtesy of Coca-Cola and Walmart. And Yadi Waino back will be celebrating those 2 all season long. So again, that's April 9th, and tickets at cardinals.com/promotions. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and Miami Marlins, not to be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cardinals and Marlins. With Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, I'm Dan McLaughlin. And the 2nd inning of work now for Jake Woodford. This is Garcia at the plate. He struck out his first time up, 3, 4, and 5 for Miami. Well, Tommy, we've been on the air for a couple of games now, and for you and your fan base, first time you've been on the air. You mentioned some of the coworkers you'll have in the booth, but one of the big stories in baseball right around when the lockout ended was the fact that Derek Jeter is no longer with Miami, and maybe update your fans on what happened there.
Yeah, I think what happened, Derek Jeter had a 5-year contract with the ball club. With him here, it was great for the face of a franchise, but he wasn't on the field. There were some moves made, and I think with him gone, there really isn't a lot of difference. And from what I've been told, and everything else in the front office is moving right on the same plane, same track. And I think we've seen that with the acquisition of Jorge Soler just the other day, with Garcia being signed. The commitment is there. Bruce Sherman.
Alcantara gets an extension.
Alcantara with an extension, bringing in Stallings, bringing in Joey Wendell in a trade. And so the commitment is there by Bruce Sherman and his ownership group now.
And a swing and a miss, and Garcia, the first strikeout for Jake Woodford. Jesus Aguilar will be the batter, and there's one away.
So Jake Woodford in this at bat, he's threw some sinkers down and then goes 4-seam up, and we've seen a lot of that throughout Jake Woodford's career. Able to elevate, also uses the slower breaking ball with that to kind of set that pitch up.
Aguilar fly to center with a runner at first, his first time up. And that pitch taken for a strike. Only hit today was Jesus Sanchez with a base hit to right. Cardinals have gone 9 up and 9 down. The Marlins had a base runner in the first with a walk and a 2-out single in the second. Went 1-2-3 in the third. It's fouled back, 0-2.
We were kind of talking about it before the game with looking at the flags in the wind, because you had a feeling there wouldn't be a lot of balls hit out of the ballpark, especially to right field. They had a feeling it might be a pitcher's day today.
I'd say we're about 7-8 miles from the ocean, so you're not sure what you're going to get even in the game. You know, the weather can change so quickly down here in southern Florida, where you have a beautiful day, all of a sudden you get a rain shower. It happens all the time, as you well know, but also the wind can shift. It's kind of like regular season play at Wrigley. You're not sure what you're going to get. And that's back-to-back Ks for Jake Woodford. Good breaking ball there.
Showed off in that at bat. He showed a couple of the harder slider away, then ends up finishing Aguilar with that bigger breaking ball. Good mechanics, hand stays on top of it. Sometimes Jake Woodford will have that tendency, and most pitchers do, to try to make it nasty, and you end up pulling off of it. That time he stayed back very well.
Yeah, he used to get off that team bus at Wrigley Field, look at the flagpole. Which way's the wind blow?
That's right. Now, were you a part of that game with Schmitty?
I was there when he hit 4.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, we used to kid him because he hit one off each of the Rushells. Rick Russell and his brother Paul.
That's right. Forgot about that part of it. The 0-1 pitch, and now 0-2.
Well, Jake's doing a good job of commanding counts, getting ahead. See if he can bury another one. Yeah, in my experience, guys, the wind was always blowing out at Wrigley. If I remember it correctly, and my career stats back that up. Did not fare well there.
How about pitching here? Do you like this ballpark?
Love this place.
Yeah, this has always been a very tough place to hit.
Yeah, this is a place you throw it down the middle and let them do the work.
It's popped foul and out of play, and a souvenir.
That's why it's impressive when you see different guys put up numbers,
yes,
you know, at this ballpark. And we've seen a shift in the last year. So low A is now based out of Palm Beach here. But you watch Jordan Walker put up numbers, power numbers. You look at Nolan Gorman putting up numbers. I mean, there's a lot there.
And the 0-2 pitch. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Miguel Rojas. Very fine play first time up, but a backhanded effort by Nolan Arenado to take a hit away. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
I think Miguel Rojas is really good for Jazz Chisholm, too, in helping him develop in all facets of the game.
That's something I'm sure that Don Mattingly really appreciates having around, isn't it? I mean, you have veterans that can show the young guys how, kind of what the ropes are.
I've always found it interesting with Don Mattingly having those great teams that you spoke of that spent a lot of money to win, and then you go to a market that's not spending as much. Clearly, hanging breaking ball and a base hit into left, but in that regard, Tommy, you become really a teacher again of the game. And in LA, you've got a lot of veterans that have been around a long time.
I would venture to say, and I don't know if he would answer it publicly, but I would venture to say if you asked Don Mattingly where he has enjoyed managing the most, he would say Miami and not Los Angeles, even though he had some 90-win seasons out there.
Just because of the teaching aspect of the game.
And he also had Miguel Rojas out there. They've been together about 9 years now.
Yeah.
So he knows Miggy very well.
Astudillo grounded out to third. First time up. Runner at first is Rojas. And the first pitch is strike. Don Mattingly grew up in Cardinals country. Evansville, Indiana. Occasionally you'll see him at a Purple Aces basketball game in the offseason. Nothing in 2.
And what an incredible player Don Mattingly was in a period of time. I mean, 6 All-Stars, an MVP, a batting title.
Hall of Famer, you think?
Boy, it's close. It really is close because it doesn't quite go deep enough. But the
Great
run he was on.
Player, the Gold Gloves.
Yeah, he had back problems. He's close.
On an 0-2 pitch, it's lined into right center field. Cut off by Carlson. And runners at the corners for the Marlins after back-to-back singles.
Jake Woodford gets ahead in the count 0-2, as you mentioned, Dan, and then that slider just catches too much of the plate. Our studio is going to be in defensive mode, kind of shortens up on this swing a little bit. And the slider, it's away, it's off the plate, but just not enough there.
Yeah, there are a lot of hitters that he gets out with that pitch, but Astudillo just trying to protect the plate and just stayed with it. Didn't do a whole lot with it, but got the base hit.
Jake Woodford at 32 pitches, 20 strikes. Johan Oviedo has been up and down with the club, is getting loose. The big right-hander in the St. Louis bullpen. Well, I guess ideally, if you're Oli Marmol, you're thinking 2 innings if everything goes to plan, and if not, you probably have 35, maybe 40 pitches penciled in and then get them out.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you let him roll out there, get a couple of innings work, and Woodford's pumping strikes. Let him get out of this one.
And Sanchez takes a pitch high. He's singled to right back in inning number 2.
Now, my outsider question to you, how will a young manager such as Oli Marmol deal with things after he's replacing a guy who had some success in Mike Schultz?
It's $1 million question, isn't it? Right? I mean,
absolutely.
The thing about it is that Oli, and Dan, you know Oli very well. I mean, he was Schultz's right-hand man, already had a relationship with all of these guys. So there's no like coming in and having to build trust. He already has that trust there. So he believes in honesty is the best policy. And I feel like a lot of managers say that, but maybe don't do it. I truly believe that being honest with the players, I think whatever moves you end up making, at least they know where you're coming from.
You know what's interesting, guys, is that he's younger than some of the players on his roster.
Yeah, how does he deal with Adam Wainwright?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yadier Molina.
The first time he talked about this yesterday.
Trying to take him out.
The first time he talked to Yadi or was in like a meeting with Yadi was actually having the meeting with the minor leaguers when Oli was a player. So, I mean, it is crazy how the world turns, but the respect is still there.
The 1-2 is swung on and missed, and 3 strikeouts in the inning for Woodford. His day is through. Marlins strand a pair. Oli Marmol, new manager here in St. Louis. We're scoreless.
This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the Miami Marlins and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Miami Marlins.
Well, Tommy Hutton is in mid-season form, reading promos flawlessly. Brad Thompson, Dan McLaughlin with you. Richard Blyer is the new pitcher. And the top of the lineup, it is Tommy Edman, Paul Goldschmidt, and Dylan Carlson. We're scoreless here in the home half of the fourth.
Well, Richard Blyer is a guy that you have to have out of your bullpen. The Marlins like to have 2, maybe 3 lefties, but last year 66% ground ball outs. He got lefties out, fastballs, sliders.
Taps slowly up the third base line, and Edman is the first Cardinal base runner. Well, the bullpen last season, that was a priority. Revamping the relief core of the Miami Marlins as Edman reaches on this slowly hit baseball. Do or die. If it's picked cleanly, it's an out, but Tommy Edman is at first and ruled a base hit.
There's some guys out of that Miami bullpen that last year unheralded somewhat.
It's whacked out to deep left field, down into the corner, one hopper over the wall, and a ground rule double for Paul Goldschmidt that hits the wall. It's easily 1-0 Cardinals with the speed of Tommy Edman, and the first 2 have reached.
I think sometimes in spring training, when you're out there to get your work, you're a lefty such as Blyer, who for the most part when he comes in the season, he's going to be facing left-handed hitters. You're just out there getting work, and now you're facing guys like Goldschmidt. You got Arenado on deck. It's a little different story, but you still have to try to make your pitches and get your work.
Yeah, it's good reps one way or the other, right? And for Goldschmidt, he's looking for anything in the zone, trying to put a good swing on it. Does so there.
Here's Dylan Carlson, runners at second and third in a scoreless ball game. And a pitch kept in front, ball 1.
The Marlins think enough of Richard Blyer that just yesterday extended his contract for a couple of years. So good for him. He feels settled, so he knows where he's going to be and what his job's going to be.
Well, he had Anthony Bass started as a week or so as the closer last year, then was removed from that. He had Dylan Floro, who had 15 saves. Anthony Bender worked late innings. And the rotation had a lot of injuries, so the pen was asked to cover a lot of innings last season for Miami.
Yeah, and Bass rebounded because July and September he had an ERA under 2.
Right.
So he made a nice rebound. Stephen Okert, another left-hander who could be in that bullpen.
And the 1-1 is hit out to deep left. Spun around was De La Cruz. He'll make the catch up against the wall. Tommy Edman tags up, and it's 1-0 Cardinals. Goldschmidt kind of in no man's land, Brad. You know, he was almost halfway, as if to say, well, if it gets down, I got to score, and if not, I'm going back to the bag and to tag up, but he did not do that.
Yeah, I think it ends up being good base running by Goldie. He does go halfway, sees the play happen here, and either way, drive in a run by Dylan Carlson. Really good swing, good at bat. And I really thought off the bat that was going to carry even further over the head and left.
There's Nolan Arenado grounded out to third. Goldschmidt at second base. One away now in a 1-0 game in favor of St. Louis. Tommy, what do you think on a base running play like that? Do you do what Goldschmidt did, or do you go back to the bag?
Yeah, I think especially in a game like this, that ball had top spin.
Yeah.
So you don't know right off the bat. That's got a chance to get down. If you go back to tag and it gets down, you might not score, because if it's played off the wall properly. I thought he did the right thing.
That's pulled foul, 0-2 on Nolan Arenado. Now in his second season with the Cardinals, and typical Nolan fashion, he's saying, man, you know, my first year was okay. Well, you know, 100+ RBI, Gold Glove, 34 bombs, not bad.
34 and 105, and he wasn't happy. Sign me up.
Arenado pulls it just foul.
Well, after all those years with the Rockies, I'm sure it didn't take long for Cardinal fans to take to Nolan Arenado.
Not at all.
As soon as he showed up.
Yeah, the day that the trade was announced, yeah, this is our guy.
It is nice though to hear stuff like that. I mean, the 34 and 105 driven in, but it's not about counting numbers for him. It's about day to day taking the best at bats that he can.
Just a bit high. What's interesting what the Rockies did in terms of Arenado coming to St. Louis, then paying a hefty portion of the salary, and then going out and signing Chris Bryant this offseason for $162.
Bit of a surprise, I think, the Bryant signing with the Rockies.
Arenado laces it foul.
I think surprise is an understatement. I'm shocked by it.
I think most people seriously wanted to hear Chris Bryant just say, hey, I went there because that was the most money anybody offered.
Right.
That was more than I thought I was going to get.
That's a good fit for the family, and I think it's going to work out well.
Denver.
Yeah,
family loves it.
Here's a 1-2. I remember when Mike Hampton signed with the Rockies, and he said, yeah, a big part of this was the school system.
School system.
Also, the $100+ million added to it was very nice.
Yeah, but you can't buy a good school system. Oh, wait, you probably
actually could, yeah. With him, that contract, the 2-2. Ooh, just missed in.
But a couple of pretty good pitches by Blyer, a couple of fastballs that he's just missed off the plate.
Rockies weren't done. They then extended Ryan McMahon yesterday for $70 million. So they're spending some money. 3-2 the count on Arenado. And he pulls it foul again.
There's also been a regime change there too, so maybe it's a whole different line of thinking.
Yeah.
But they sent over Nolan Arenado and a bunch of money just to go spend it on, and I really like Chris Bryant. Well, Chris Bryant isn't Nolan Arenado.
Certainly not defensively. 3-2 again. And Nolan lifts it high in the air out to deep left field. And that ball is gone. It just snuck over the wall. And it's a home run for Nolan Arenado. Arenado, his first home run of the spring, a 2-run shot to make it 3-0 St. Louis.
It's one of those at bats that he'll look back on and remember the two fastballs that just missed in. Blyer will look at it, remember the two fastballs that just missed in, and then mistake out over the plate.
That's it. It ended up being extension. We know that swing very well for Nolan Arenado, and it was a couple of very good pitches spotted in by Blyer. But he's one of those guys, you make a mistake to, you'll be in trouble. Good breaking ball right there to get right back into it, though.
So the Cardinals have 3 hits in the inning and now 3 runs. Single by Tommy Edman, the double by Paul Goldschmidt, 2-run homer hit by Nolan Arenado. And DeYoung hits it sharply, and that's not handled by the second baseman on the shift, Jazz Chisholm, and a hard hit ball.
That's what the Cardinals,
he's all right.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what the Cardinals need to see out of Paul DeYoung is just him squaring up the baseball. That was 107 miles an hour off the bat. He needs that.
Well, that's a situation where the shift worked. Jazz Chisholm right there, but look at this in-between hop right at the end. May have caught him on the wrist, somewhere on the finger, and looks like Chisholm's going to come out of the game.
And that
ball was stung. Looked like that right hand somewhere caught him.
Ruled a base hit for Paul DeYoung. Medical team and Don Mattingly taking no chances here with Chisholm. Just get him out of the game and tend to it.
Better safe than sorry. Tommy, when you have a ball like that, and it looked like that first hop might have hit the lip of the grass, I mean, that can change some things for you.
Changes things a lot, yeah. Changes things a lot. That ball was stung. You mentioned the exit velocity of it.
I believe that's John Birdie. Takes over now at second base for Chisholm.
Another valuable guy that the Marlins have in John Birdie over the last 2-3 years. He's got a real good opportunity this spring because he's a guy who can also play center field and play it pretty well. He can play second, he can play short, play third.
Well, you get a guy that can play center and short. You got a spot.
Something.
Yeah. So Birdie takes over at second base. Again, ruled a base hit. 4 hits in the inning for the Cardinals. No activity for the Marlins in their pen. And here is Andrew Knizner, grounded out to second his first time up. Andrew played winter ball this offseason, and this is a big year for him. He's been the backup to Yadier Molina. There's a lot of guys that could say that over the years, but if this is indeed Yadi's last year, we'll see if Knizner would be the guy then moving forward to be the everyday catcher.
Yeah, you never know when the opportunities are going to come in that role. I mean, it's kind of like being the backup over the years for like Favre or Rodgers. You know, it's tough. But when you do get the chance, what can you do with it? I think that he's shown. I mean, he'll give you a good at-bat. He's got power. He's hit at every level throughout the minor leagues. He's working harder and, you know, more and more behind the plate of receiving, knowing his pitching staff. But he'll get some reps, and you're right, it is a big year for him.
It is Cardinal royalty right there, and that shot we just had of Willie McGee and the aforementioned Yadier Molina. Soft liner caught by Birdie at second, and that is out number 2. There's Yadi, so back in camp, and again wants to get some playing time in games in the next 4 or 5 days.
Not too bad to be an understudy of Yadier Molina.
No, he is a guy, and as you mentioned, Dan, there are a lot of guys that have been behind him, and whether it's him working with you personally or you just watching how he works, Tommy, I mean, you know how much you can soak up from that.
There's Yepez with a runner at first and 2 down. Well, I think the story you told last inning is great, is that Ali Marmol was a minor league player and Yadi came in to speak to the minor leaguers, and now he's his manager. I mean, you know, Yadi is willing to share the knowledge and to be somebody that young players can admire and look up to and ask questions. It's invaluable.
Well, he was, you know, always been the guy throughout his career too, where he's first to the ballpark in the morning. You just hear something, you know, you can't really see because it's dark around the cages, and it's him out there blocking balls with some of the minor league guys would pull him over. And when you see that sort of work ethic, you don't get to play as long as Yadier Molina has in the big leagues without having that. Does he have God-given gifts? Of course he does. But the work ethic is what has made him the player that he is.
Yeah, that's, you know, Tommy, you got to admire a guy that shows, I mean, literally he's here at 5 in the morning. All the time. Matt Carpenter was like that. Matt Holliday was like that as well. As Yepez taps it foul, 0-2 the count.
Going back to a little bit, Tommy, what you were saying about Rojas and his relationship with Jazz Chisholm, when you're seeing some of the veteran guys do that and show up early in the way that they go about it, it makes you want to emulate it, doesn't it?
It sets just a great example without really saying a whole lot. Don't have to say a whole lot.
I'm here whenever you need me.
0-2 pitch again. Fouled back. What are the battles in camp right now, you think, Tommy, for this Marlins team? I guess depending on if you have an expanded roster, too.
Yeah, there'll be some bullpen battles, certainly. You're right, depending on whether 26-man roster, maybe 27. Battle's going to be who's going to be in center field, who's going to play center.
It's another 0-2 pitch to Yepez.
But you think about the starting lineup with Soler now in the fold. He'll probably be in left. Garcia will be in right. Brian Anderson at third. Miggy Rowe at short. Jazz at second. Aguilar and Cooper will flip-flop at first and DH. And Stallings behind the plate.
Not bad.
And there's some talk of having Brian Anderson get some time in left field. That will allow Joey Wendell to get some time in the infield.
0-2 hit into shallow right, and Birdie just into the game. A sliding catch. What a play.
That's the way it always happens.
We'll find you. Big inning for the Cardinals in their half of the fourth. 4 hits, highlighted by a 2-run shot from Nolan Arenado. Beaten so far here in spring, both at 3-0. New pitcher is Johan Oviedo, now 24 years of age. He's had 18 major league starts without earning a win.
I'd say he's due, fellas. I mean, at some point, we know that the stuff is overpowering with Johan Oviedo. He's got that fastball that sits in the mid-90s, runs it up in the upper 90s. Got good life on it, very good slider as well. But in this league, if you're not throwing strikes, we're going to run into some problems. But Tommy, that's kind of been the issue with Oviedo, is he's around the strike zone a lot more than he's in it.
Yeah, I think what's more frustrating is when you have a guy that has his kind of stuff and then is not in the strike zone.
And it's popped up left side, battling the sun. Arenado, foul territory, and makes the catch. You may recall last year in a day game that eventually the Cardinals won on a walk-off hit by Yadier Molina. It was Oviedo and Sandy Alcantara. Sandy went the distance and took an L. And Oviedo went 7, I believe, in that game. And that was one of his best starts of the year. Cardinals won it in a walk-off and a sweep of the Marlins at Busch Stadium. But still very high hopes for Johan Oviedo.
Sandy Alcantara's had too many of those starts.
I bet. Here's De La Cruz, shift on the left side. So 1 out and nobody on. That pitch taken low. Brad, you hit the nail on the head. The fact is, Johan Oviedo, great stuff. It is about throwing strikes.
Yeah, and that's what they want to see. The confidence, like Tommy was talking about. I mean, there is a frustration level when you have stuff like he does, when you're not attacking with it. And it's not that he's not willing. He's going to be able to.
And a fly ball lifted into right field. Burleson is there, and 2 away.
And we will thank you for Sandy Alcantara. I know coming from the Cardinal organization in the Ozuna trade, because he's been such a steady horse. 33 starts last year, over 200 innings, 9-15 record, but an ERA just a tad over 3. So he keeps you in ball games every time he goes out there.
It was the first 200 inning, 200 strikeout pitcher for the Marlins in over a decade. Slowly hit, broken bat, charging. That's Paul DeYoung to retire John Birdie, filling in now for Chisholm. 1, 2, 3 for Oviedo, midway through 5. Cardinals on to a breezy day here at the ballpark. Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, Dan McLaughlin. Spring training action on both Valley Sports Florida, Valley Sports Midwest. Our Budweiser What's on Tap for Cardinal fans. There's a look at the schedule, also with the TV schedule. We'll be back with you on Friday and Saturday. Nationals on Friday, and then the Marlins again. Tommy will rejoin us on Saturday the 26th. Brendan Donovan, Burleson, and Tommy Edman, and a new pitcher in, Zach Pop.
Well, a guy who literally has some pop in that fastball. Fastball, he'll throw most of the time, mix in sliders. Fastball 95, 96. Did a nice job last year coming out of the bullpen.
Donovan struck out his first time up. And it's 2 balls and no strikes. Big gap in right center field. They shade him the other way. And the 2-0. Taken there for a strike.
Guys, whatever happened to the 88, 89 mile-an-hour sinker baller? You know, I got a soft spot for that guy. Everybody's bullpen's running out 95 to 100. It's pretty impressive what they're doing nowadays.
And the guys that could pump strikes consistently, too. And a fly ball that'll carry out to left. And wind aided, it is gone. How about that? We mentioned the wind blowing in from right, but from right to left, it carries out of here. And it's a 4-0 St. Louis lead as Brendan Donovan has his first home run this spring.
He knew it the whole time, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
This is a 95-mile-an-hour sinker. It's middle, but drives it the other way, just gets it in the air, and any other day, maybe a can of corn. Today, Tommy, it's a bomb.
Yeah, if you Google wind-blown spring training home run, that's what shows up.
That's what you get. Now, Alec Burleson. And that's strike one. Well, you take him any way you can get him. You don't worry about it.
Put the ball in play, good things happen, Dan.
That's right. That's right. Shift on the right side of the infield, the 0-1 pitch. And a fastball taken high. Pulled foul into the St. Louis dugout.
Tommy, I don't know how it's been for the Marlins for the first few games, but we've seen actually quite the opposite of this for the Cardinals. It seems like the ball is crushed and never quite gets out of the stadium. This time it travels out.
Yeah, the Marlins have hit a couple of home runs. Avisail Garcia went deep. Hit one off the building in left center. Jazz hit one in West Palm the other night against the Nationals.
1-2 tapped out in front of the plate. And the out recorded. 2-3. First out here in the home half of the fifth.
It is amazing, though, and I mean, I think this spring training is so different because of the shortness. But in the past, fans like to make a whole lot out of spring training, and certainly it's meaningful to the guy who needs to make the ball club, but to the other players, it's get in shape, don't get hurt, get ready for the season, because once the season starts, everybody forgets about what happened here.
There's Tommy Edman. He had the most ABs in baseball last year. Doesn't walk all that much. Switch hitter. I don't think enough has been made of it, but he takes over for Colton Wong, who we know is a superior defender, and wins the Gold Glove.
Oh, he earned every bit of that, too. I mean, it seemed like we got very spoiled and used to seeing great highlight plays with Colton Wong here. Well, Tommy Edman just fit right in perfectly. He's got big-time range. I was just watching him today do some of his drills and go through it, whether it be turning double plays, tags. I mean, everything that Tommy does is so incredibly smooth. Now, this is the side of the plate that he's going to try to work on a little bit more. The numbers are down from the left side. But what a weapon he is. Doubles machine last year with 41 of them.
I wonder what Tommy Hutton was just saying. Tommy Edman made an impression a couple of years ago, and they just kept putting him out there to the point that it was like, who is this guy? And not realizing maybe just how good he is, but in a big league camp, surprising a lot of people. And a fly ball that the wind will knock down.
Got to hit that one to left.
Oh, boy.
Got a chance. Yeah, I like the fact that Edman played 159 games.
Yeah. Was in the top three, has stolen bases in the National League. Here's Goldschmidt, 1 for 2 with a double and a run scored.
I know that a lot of the analytics, Tommy, don't love the stolen base, the speed aspect of the game. I think it's still a huge, valuable weapon.
Oh, I think fans love it. I think fans love it. I was watching a couple of weeks ago, I think it was MLB Network, had a
College
special
showcase too.
No, they had a special on the Cardinals.
Oh, the 80s. Yeah, the 80s teams.
And I mean, I sat there with watching Whitey and watching all the guys run the bases, Willie McGee, and I enjoyed that. I mean, they were on the AstroTurf too. You gotta allow that on the hard surface. But that was fun baseball. A lot of teams back then. I played with the Expos for a number of years. Had some speed. Tim Raines, Andre Dawson, guys like that.
Well, I think Willie wound up with 79 career home runs, and you can't tell me there's been a more exciting player than watching Willie McGee go from first to third or home to third on a triple, the way he could run, how those teams played the game. And that's why I do think it'd be a good idea to expand the bases. As you guys mentioned, it's bang bang plays that get you. If you add the 3 inches, might be more aggressive to steal. Tough play here, deep in the hole, and they'll get Paul Goldschmidt. And that'll go 5-6-3 with the stretch. That's hitting into some tough luck.
That's spring training right there.
Home run, Brendan Donovan to extend the lead. To you by Great Southern Bank, understanding what really matters. By Car Shield. Car Shield cars go farther. And Plaza Tire Service. Well, the Cardinals with some changes. We'll try to get those to you as we move along here in the top of the 6th. Be the second inning of work for Johan Oviedo. Enjoyed a 1-2-3 fifth inning for St. Louis. Two scoreless by Hudson, 2 by Woodford, 1 by Oviedo, and counting.
Not only a 1-2-3 inning, but a 6-pitch inning for a guy that we talked about. It throws a lot of pitches, is around the zone. 6 pitches, 4 strikes.
There is Lewin Diaz, spells it Lewin, pronounced Lewin Diaz.
Some fun power to watch in batting practice.
And he lines it out to center. And the catch is made for the first out. It's Scott Hurst who has taken over in center field for Dylan Carlson. Delvin Perez is now at short for the Cardinals. Brendan Donovan is taken over at third after starting today in left. Here's Garcia. Lucan Baker is the new first baseman. Garcia 0 for 2 with a pair of strikeouts today. Cardinals with a pair of home runs.
When you look closely at Avisail Garcia, Mini Miggy is his nickname. Miguel Cabrera, he looks like. And there are a lot of similarities.
Sure are. Mannerisms, how he has his stance, little things he does at the plate, even stepping out of the box and the way he's doing it. What does Miggy have left? 2 more years on that deal?
I don't know. He has 13 more hits to 3,000 though.
Think about Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols, of their generation, the 2 best right-handed hitters, and then I'd say
without question
graduates then to maybe Mike Trout.
Mike Trout would go into that later.
Albert Pujols still without a job at this point.
Does that surprise you?
With the DH, he needs the DH, I would say. So,
certainly.
You know, American League teams are pretty much set. You would think his best shot would be now because teams are looking for that, or if they're looking for somebody to face a left-handed pitcher coming off the bench. He can still hit left-handed pitcher. We saw that last year.
Well, I think a lot of teams use the DH now as a revolving door.
Exactly.
Kind of give a few guys a breather, maybe use a couple of guys. There aren't many pure DHs anymore.
No, you're absolutely right with that. But you mentioned like Miggy's milestone, 13 hits away from 3,000. Albert is 21 home runs away from 700.
Right. Got in on him. It's popped up. Perez backing up and makes the catch. Former first-round pick Delvin Perez. 2022 Cardinals Hall of Fame ballot presented by Edward Jones is live now through April 15th, and you can cast your vote. Top deserving player from another great field of candidates. Cardinals.com/HOF. This year, Steve Carlton, George Hendricks, Silent George, Matt Holliday, Matt Morris, Edgar Renteria on that list. Here's Aguilar, and a pitch taken up and in. So 2 outs and nobody on. Oviedo trying to make it 6 up and 6 down. Aguilar takes a hack.
Speaking of that DH spot, Jesus Aguilar and Cooper will probably fill that role. Garrett Cooper and Aguilar, a couple of right-handed bats. and they'll play first base the days they don't DH.
The 1-1. It's softly to third. Taken there by Donovan. 1, 2, 3. And 2 scoreless innings for Johan Oviedo. St. Louis on top. Spring training baseball from Jupiter. It's 4-0. Beautiful day. Take in the sunshine, perfect weather, and a little baseball. It's back in 2022. And the Cardinals with a 4-0 lead. Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, Dan McLaughlin with you. New pitcher is in for Miami. And that is Sean Armstrong, right-handed pitcher, now for the Marlins. Tommy has been digging on many of these young kids, and he's going to save his best info for regular season play.
Or maybe Saturday when we're back together.
Here's Nolan Gorman. Well, this is one of those guys, Brad, that maybe has a chance to come north with the club. He's made the transition from third to second, but it's his bat that will carry him to the big leagues.
Yeah, it is, and he picked up a couple of hits last night against Washington. Ollie Marmol put him in the 3-hole against the Nationals, and he was talking about him yesterday and just the confidence that Nolan has. Nolan believes that he can help this ball club and that he can do so now. He's going to have to earn every bit of it, but there's a lot of excitement around a young power hitting lefty that the Cardinals, I mean, really need more thump from that side of the plate.
Yeah, very right-handed hitting lineup. The 0-2 pitch and a swing and a miss. So Gorman strikes out. Well, for the Cardinals, Ollie Marmol is your skipper. There he is on the left in his first year, and an old buddy returns and Skip Schumacher.
How about that? I love having Skip Schumacher back here, and I think he'll serve as a perfect right-hand man for Ollie. I was joking with you earlier. I know I'm getting old when all my friends are now coaches.
Right.
Happens quickly.
All my friends are grandfathers now, so take it for what it's worth.
Here is Edgar Escobar, fouled back.
By the way, Sean Armstrong has spent some time at the big league level. He's over 30 now, but he's been with Baltimore, a little bit with Tampa. A lot of AAA pitching over the years. So when you get to a big league camp and you get an opportunity, all you want to do is try to make a good impression, because it's really amazing. You never know. All of a sudden things happen during the season. We see how guys get injured, and you could have had a good 1, 2, 3 inning. And Mel Stottlemyre Jr., Don Mattingly's pitching coach, could say, hey, Armstrong looked good. He threw the ball well that day. How's he doing in AAA?
Here's a 1-1 pitch to Connor Capel. What happened last year for Lars Nootbaar is many of the players, as you guys well know, are on those back fields, and it could be a pitcher that needs some work. So he goes back there, simulated game, and Lars Nootbaar made an impression, and he was one of the guys you really didn't hear all that much about. And then all of a sudden he makes a major league debut in Detroit and contributed to a winning ball club, and he was a winning player for them. So to your point, Tommy, you just don't know, especially in spring.
Well, conversely, Tommy, you know this also, even if you're tearing it up in AAA, you carry yourself the wrong way, you don't act right in a major league ball game, but they remember those things too. I mean, there are great opportunities here to expedite things.
Capel lines it into center field. The catch is made, and there's 2 away. 2 outs, and it brings in Scott Hurst, who took over in center. This is Paul DeYoung's spot. DeYoung went 1 for 2. Yeah, April 7th, though, fellas, is not that far away. And this would have been the time that are kind of the dog days of spring training and making sure guys don't get hurt, get their at-bats, pitchers get your innings in, start to build up and be extended, but not this year.
No, the Marlins have a long haul, too, because they actually had the original schedule opened up the way it was. They would have opened up at home against Atlanta, but they open up on the road in San Francisco for a series, and then play a series in Anaheim against the Angels.
So go north and go south, and then come back east.
Come back home, yeah.
Yeah. Pitch that was up. He chased it and a strikeout. 1-2-3 go the Cardinals.
Good impression.
We head to the 7th. Cardinals on top. It's 4-0. McDonald's Ticket Fest. It is back for this season, and they will celebrate the legendary Cardinals battery mates Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina. This is a great deal. Limited time. Purchase tickets for April and May. Those games for as low as $4. Also all-inclusive tickets starting at just $50. That's everything included. Your ticket, food and drink. So if you'd like information, head to cardinals.com/ticketfest. Four to nothing our score. Cardinals with a pair of home runs hit today. Nolan Arenado is first of the spring, a 2-run shot, part of a 3-run 4th inning. Brendan Donovan a solo home run. And Brandon Waddell, lefty, saw him just briefly last year, Brad, but he's into the ball game for St. Louis.
Yeah, saw him 4 games with the Cardinals. Also appeared in the big leagues with the Minnesota Twins and the Baltimore Orioles, who the Cardinals picked him off of waivers in June. And another guy looking for an opportunity that can prove that he can throw strikes, parts of 2 big league years. And that's the key. You come in here with this Cardinals defense, you throw strikes, well, you're going to find yourself some chances.
That's a key, boy, when you think about the Cardinals, and they had a historically bad month of June in just about every facet. Pitching, hitting.
It was a long month. Winning
games. And they went out and found guys that could throw strikes, and if they could sink the ball and get ground balls, that's better. The high fly ball lifted into deep left center field, and it is caught on the run. Scott Hurst chasing that down in center in a fine play.
Well, Miguel Rojas put a charge into that, and after seeing that windblown home run back in the 4th inning, he thought maybe if he pulls this ball a little bit more, it's out of here by a lot, but he hit that ball well. Nice play in center.
I got a feeling that ball might get out of a lot of ballparks. We talked about it earlier here. Ball does not generally travel incredibly well. The winds are always swirling. He hit that one on the screws.
So 1 out. And that pitch taken outside.
Swing it, man. Got it, baby. Yeah.
Ray Patrick Ditter out of Aruba.
And Ditter puts it on the ground to short. Delvin Perez showing off the arm. And there's 2 away. That brings in Jesus Sanchez with 2 outs and nobody on. Sanchez 1 for 2. He had the first hit in our game back in the 2nd with a base hit to right.
I think the thing last year about Sanchez, it was impressive, was the way he hit left-handers. You know, a lot of young players come up, and he hit near 260 against lefties, hitting the 240s against righties. So tells me that he hangs in, stays with it, just got on top of that one, and a quick inning.
Baker to Waddell. Time to stretch here at Roger Dean Stadium. And the Cardinals leading 4-0. With Tommy Hutton, Brad Thompson, I'm Dan McLaughlin. New right-hander is in now for the Miami Marlins. Jimmy Yacobonis. So Yacobonis, the new pitcher in for Miami. First batter he's going to face is shortstop Delvin Perez. We have not had a Rule 5 draft, by the way, because of the lockout. That's been scrapped. And Delvin Perez could have been selected Rule 5. Also Luke and Baker. So they're still here in the organization. Former first-round pick. You know, can he ever put it all together to become a major leaguer? And time will tell.
Yeah, you see the skill set. You mentioned it. Showed off that strong arm on the ground ball to him. growing into his body a little bit, showing off a little bit more pop, and still incredibly young. I mean, there's plenty of time.
Yeah, Cabonas, a 13th round draft pick of the Orioles back in 2013.
And the 0-1 pitch to Delvin Perez. A fastball taken off the plate, 1 ball and 1 strike.
Yeah, it was really interesting with the lockout, the way a lot of organizations signed players to minor league contracts.
Yeah.
That way they could get them into camp.
Everybody was on the outside looking in, wondering if and when we would have baseball. And I think we're all in agreement. Thank goodness we're here, and thank goodness it's 162.
That is for sure. And I do wonder if there's anything that we can learn throughout the lockout process prior to it and after. I'm not talking about it. The two sides are never going to love each other. I think that we realize that. But there was a flurry of free agent moves. And baseball was kind of at the forefront for a little while, where you had all these transactions and everybody was into it. And then as soon as the lockout ended, you had all these transactions. I wonder if there's a way, guys, to be able to do that, whether it be a signing period for players and a dead period. I don't know, but that part of it with all of the free agents moving all over the place was a lot of fun.
Did kind of create a lot of excitement.
Sure did. A ball and 2 strikes on Delvin Perez. Yepes to follow, and Perez puts it in play up the middle, and that'll be a base hit. So Delvin Perez, first plate appearance of the afternoon, and a base hit. I bet if people were truthful, your presidents of baseball organizations and general managers, they would probably say having a dead period around Christmas and around New Year's was enjoyable. Like, I actually got to be around my family, not looking at my phone as my kids are opening up presents from Santa. Those kind of things.
Yeah, I would agree.
I remember years ago having a conversation with Dave Dombrowski, and he told me the only day that he had his phone shut off was Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about when Kurt Schilling sat down at Thanksgiving dinner with, you know, Theo Epstein and getting convinced to go to Boston. Thanksgiving. You know, it's just, it's 24/7, 365. That's just the way this business is.
And nowadays with the social media, the texting, and how quickly information can change hands.
Yes. There's Yepes, who is 0 for 2 today. And looks at a pitch just off the plate.
Eddie, what you getting, Ed? Where's Ed?
1 ball and 1 strike. Perez, the runner at first, and the 1-1 in the dirt. Nice play to keep that in front. 2-1. Cardinals have a lefty getting loose in their pen. I believe that is Zach Thompson, a former first-round pick out of Kentucky a couple of years ago. A late swing evens it up at 2-2.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about the surprise of Chris Bryant going to the Rockies. I was surprised where Carlos Correa ended up.
You would have made a lot of money if you put a bet on saying, all right, Carlos Correa, yeah, Minnesota, that's the place. And
years. How many years?
Yeah, well, you can opt out after this year.
Yeah.
Carlos Correa, and then Bryant going to the Rockies. The 2-2 up and in. See if the Cardinals want to start Perez on this pitch. 3-2. And that'd be interesting too, to see a young manager like Ali Marmol, who was a bench coach, and you manage along as a bench coach to make sure that your manager is not missing anything. But is he going to be aggressive in these kind of spots? How does he handle his bullpen, especially early with a shortened spring? Runner goes, and the pitch is taken high for a ball as Perez stumbled into the bag at second. So first and second, and nobody out for St. Louis.
Bullpens are always interesting to see how they're handled. I really believe unless, and there are exceptions, unless a team has a real set bullpen. Usually it takes about a month before you figure, okay, this guy fits well in the 6th inning. This guy, I think I
changes
can
every year.
Use him in the 7th, maybe the 8th. And you know, a lot of teams, and there are a few teams that have that, but most often than not, it takes a while to really figure it out, for a manager to figure it out.
I think it adds an extra layer too when you look at the Cardinals might try to attack this in a different way. They've got a lot of guys that are coming off of injury. We mentioned today's starter Dakota Hudson coming off of Tommy John. You're going to be watching innings, so you're going to have some multi-inning relievers in the mix, kind of this hybrid role to be able to bridge gaps. Well, you got to be able to provide rest for those guys as well. You have to have multiple pieces that can do it. I think it will be a difficult one to kind of manage.
So if you get expanded rosters, I guess a question would be, do you take what would be a starter in a normal year at AAA and bring him up as a long reliever, if you will?
I would.
Yeah.
I would have as much protection as you could possibly have.
Donovan fouls it back. He is homered today. One of 2 the Cardinals have hit, the other by Nolan Arenado, and he's 1 for 2.
And as we talked about, sometimes the best laid plans, you mentioned it earlier, Anthony Bass was penciled in to be the Marlins closer, signed a 2-year contract beginning of last year. Things didn't work out early for him. He settled in, pitched better later, but you still have to find somebody, and it worked out. Dylan Floro stepped in and did a nice job, but you wonder how things are going to go this year.
Right. I've said this a million times, but you talk to those in management, they say the hardest thing to figure out is your bullpen year to year. Because of what you just said. You sign Bass, oh, he's supposed to be the closer, and then doesn't work out, finds a different role. One ball and 2 strikes on Donovan with 2 runners on and nobody out. Off the plate, 2-2.
For the reason that you bring up there, Dan, with all the volatility year to year with guys in the bullpen, that's why teams are so reluctant to go out there and sign these big time relievers for the long-term contract. You better be sure that that's your missing piece. Like, that's the piece that puts you over the top, because if not, there's a lot of risk involved.
Inconsistencies with those signings.
Yes, the workloads are there. You don't know how somebody's going to bounce back the following year.
2-2. And now a full count. Ali Marmol has talked about this, and I'm not sure how Don Mattingly feels about it, if he's changing with the times with this. But Ali has said, you know, sometimes a game is on the line in the 7th, and with my high leverage guy, I'm going to bring him in the 7th as opposed to having the traditional closer, let's say, in the 9th. 3-2 pitch and a foul ball. I've been saying that for years, and people thought I was crazy.
Well, it's for other reasons, Dan.
Yeah,
Good point.
I believe so, yeah. From
That
the
I'm
people
crazy,
I talk
or
to
the
anyway.
leverage
Brad,
part? The leverage part of the crazy part. Okay, thanks.
The latter.
Yeah. 2 great partners today. This will be the 8th pitch of this at bat for Donovan. And the 3-2 on its way. Hit out of play.
Tommy, you know this, the key to something like that, though, utilizing your bullpen in a little different fashion, is going to be communication. If you have a guy that's used to being out there in the 9th inning, yet he's getting the nod, maybe getting the call in the 7th inning, you got to make sure that everybody's on board for something like that.
And certainly we've seen things change over the years with closers. Guys who most of the time are going to go 1 inning. I know I had a conversation with somebody a while back. We're talking about some of the teams that I was a part of in the 70s with the Phillies. They said, who was your closer? And I said, well, and I had to go back and check it, and I was right when I said it. We had Tug McGraw, we had Gene Garber, we had Ron Reed. Each of them had like 15 or more saves, because they'd come in and pitch 2 innings, maybe 3, and get more than just 1 out.
Get up the first base line. It stays fair. Runners advance to 2nd and 3rd. Donovan retired for the 1st out.
But things are a little different now, and you don't have, you know, years ago you had the Raleigh Fingers, you had the Goose Gossage. Guys like that would go more than one inning for a save.
Bruce Sutter.
Bruce Sutter, yeah. And to this day, I always tell people he's the toughest guy I ever faced.
Bruce?
Yeah.
That split finger?
He was one of the first to throw it, so nobody had seen it. And that's why it was so tough.
Really, it saved his career, too. Roger Craig was the one that was teaching that pitch to so many different players.
Yes, bring him up.
And that's taken for a strike.
I think a pitch like that, fans, if you're watching at home, you don't understand sometimes, like, why did he swing at that? It's in the dirt. Like, put us into the box against a split finger. What is that thing looking like?
It starts out and it looks so tantalizing because it starts out about belt high. And then by the time you decide to swing, it's down in the dirt.
That's not fair.
Infield is drawn in here for the Marlins. Runners at second and third for St. Louis. Cardinals leading it 4-0 here in the home half of the 7th inning.
Beef, you got it.
And the 0-2 pitch. The check swing. 1-2 the count, held up just enough. I bet some guys are saying, you know what, this abbreviated spring, count me in. I would say it's a position
guys have said
player.
that all along.
Exactly.
And again, referring to Brad, spring training is usually for the pitchers.
That's right.
To get all these guys innings, let them work. But hitters will tell you they get ready in 3-4 weeks tops.
And a swing and a miss, so a strikeout of Burleson. Yacobonis trying to pitch out of trouble here after the first two reached with a single, then a walk. He got a ground out, now a strikeout. And this is Ivan Herrera. Highly thought of prospect. Again, another guy that may be taken over behind the plate for Yachty when and if that time comes.
I think the last part of what you said is the salient point. The if. Always think it's going to happen.
And Herrera looks at a ball outside. He's gotten himself into tremendous condition. He's just grown into his body. Made it up to AAA last year. Two outs and two on.
I mean this with no disrespect to Herrera or Kisner, because I believe that they're both very capable. Kisner's already shown it at the big league level. Herrera will get that opportunity. Nobody's going to be able to take the place of Yadier Molina.
No. And Yachty and Waino together have a chance to set the all-time battery mates starting together list, if you will. Slowly hit up the third base line. Herrera hustling, barehanded play, and out at first. Terrific play to get Herrera. And the Cardinals strand a pair. We move to the 8th and St. Louis on top. The home runs hit today for St. Louis. Nolan Arenado with his first of the spring and a 2-run shot. Budweiser plays of the game, and a little bit later, Brendan Donovan, wind aided, but he'll take it with an opposite field home run. Ali Marmol and the St. Louis Cardinals leading by the score of 4-0. And the new pitcher in for St. Louis, Zach Thompson, 24-year-old. He is a non-roster invitee for the 3rd consecutive year. First-round pick. And he was the first lefty picked in the first round since Marco Gonzalez, now of the Mariners. He was selected in 2013 and part of the Tyler O'Neill deal.
We forget about this a lot of times, and this affected every single team out there, that 2020 there was no minor league season.
For sure.
So it puts a real dent in some of the learning curve that is out there. And Zach Thompson's learning curve took him from A-ball and a limited amount of A-ball to AAA last year. And the numbers, well, bore out. He had his struggles. He had an ERA north of 7. Mechanically, he was off a little bit. Talking to some of the guys that were down there, had the eyes on him every day. He was fighting through some things, but really fixed them in the Arizona Fall League, where he went out there and pitched really well.
Softly hit into center field, and a leadoff base hit. Nick Fortes.
That was a good job by Nick Fortes. We were talking earlier about competition, and certainly he's in the competition for that backup catching role. There's Fortes, there's Peyton Henry, who we saw earlier, Alex Jackson behind Stallings. So a base hit there by Fortes. He didn't play a lot last year, but I'll tell you what, in his short time as a Marlin, 14 games, he hit 4 home runs.
That'll play. Now Burdick at the plate to face Thompson. As Brad mentioned, an Arizona Fall League All-Star. He figured something out. A really tough year, to the point that they brought him back here to kind of work on the mechanics. They have the pitching lab that is here, and there's still high hopes for this left-hander.
Oh, and there should be. The stuff is there. The ERA definitely inflated. He had his struggles, but it's 1 year, and for Zach Thompson, that's just a learning curve. You take your lumps for a season, you come back out there, you pump strikes. That breaking ball of his plays, it is good.
And a fastball taken high. 2 balls and no strikes.
You're absolutely right about guys getting cheated of that 2020 season. The minor leaguers, Peyton Burdick, another example of that. Did not play, and then was in AA and AAA last year. But you know, you lose that year of development. J.J. Bleday, another prospect in the Marlins organization, fell into that category. You mentioned Thompson, the pitcher, had a great Arizona Fall League. Bleday did, after struggling in AA.
And for those that don't know about the Arizona Fall League, Tommy, I mean, it's kind of the best of the best when it comes to prospects. So it's not like it's a bad sample. It's a great sample. You have success in that league, you're doing something right.
3-1 the count. Thompson wearing number 57, and the first Cardinal to wear that uniform number since the death of Darryl Kyle in 2002. And there's ball 4 on a pitch that's up.
Yeah, J.J. Bleday out of Vanderbilt was the MVP, co-hitter of the year in the Arizona Fall League. So really turned it on after struggling in AA.
What's the expectations for him, Tommy, this year?
I would imagine AAA. He'll start the year in AAA.
And then
he's added a few pounds. He looks good. He feels good. Saw him taking some swings the other day. Had a base hit the other night in a spring training game.
Here's Birdie with runners at first and second for the Marlins. And there's a strike.
Tom, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but they always have their top 100 prospects that roll out, and it appeared to be littered with Marlins players. I mean, it's the future looks bright.
The Marlins, one of 3 teams that have 6 in the top 100. I believe Pittsburgh and Seattle the other, but Yuri Perez, Khalil Watson, Sixto Sanchez, Edward Cabrera, Max Meyer, talked about earlier, and J.J. Bleday.
How's the health of Sixto Sanchez?
Not good. Still has some shoulder issues, and it's just been a while. So not really counting on him for much this year.
And the 0-2 pitch to Birdie.
But the guy that everybody is talking about in Marlins camp is the 6'8" teenager, 19 years old still, Yuri Perez. You talk about a guy that tall to have a repeatable delivery with the fastball he throws. He's getting a lot of attention in camp.
1-2 pitch, breaking ball, softly hit to the right side, race to the bag, and in and out of the glove of Thompson. So a base hit to center. the walk, and now an infield hit, bases loaded. And this is, you know, not how you want to draw it up clearly, but you're going to find out a little bit about Zach Thompson.
Yeah, you are. No, this is time where you bear down a little bit. Right there, it's frustrating as a pitcher. You make your pitch, but it finds himself in a little bit of a no-man's zone. He goes over there, covers the bag. This play is a difficult one for the pitcher as you're trying to catch it on the run, specifically difficult for a left-handed pitcher who has to reach across his body to try to make that play. But you got bases juice, you got nobody out. Let's see if he can bear down and get something going.
So bases loaded, nobody out. And the first pitch down and in. This is Lorenzo Quintana, catcher. Wearing number 93 in this camp for the Marlins. And the 1-0 pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Quintana last year, AAA Jacksonville, hit .294 in his 64 games.
There's Mike Maddox back for another season with St. Louis as their pitching coach, and watching closely here with Thompson. Down and in, 2 balls and a strike.
I think what you said, Brad, is right. This can tell you a little bit about a pitcher. There are some guys in spring training games, you want to see them get in trouble to see how they get out of it or don't get out.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, win or lose, however great it goes, you also want to see how somebody carries themselves in a situation like that. It's like you talked about earlier, an impression can be made one way or the other.
That's why I've always thought it's hard for a team that's looking for a closer to try to figure out who that closer is going to be by spring training games. I don't think you can do.
No. Well, the adrenaline's different. The situation is different. You know stuff when you see it, but stuff doesn't always translate to the 9th inning.
Right now, the Cardinals want to see strikes out of Thompson. Again, struggled with the walks a year ago. There it is, fouled back. Now 3-2 with the bases loaded.
On your right, Dan, 17 pitches, 9 balls, 8 strikes. Not exactly where you want to be as far as a ratio goes, but it comes down to what do you do here. 3-2, bases loaded. You got to go right after him.
Got to be looking heat right here if you're Quintana.
A time called. 3-2 the count with the bases loaded. 4-0 our score here in the top of the 8th. Lined into right center field. And 2 runs will score. Quintana on his way to second base, standing up with a double. Cuts a lead to 4-2.
Well, I really like the base running. Number one, the approach of Quintana. Knowing that he was going to get that fastball, looked like he got it up a little bit out over the plate, stayed on top of it. But I loved his base running. He never hesitated. He was thinking 2 all the way. Once the ball was cut off in the gap, he was able to make it into second base.
So the double with the bases loaded makes it a 4-2 St. Louis lead. Roman Quinn, non-roster invitee, will get a chance now at the plate. Runners at second and third, and still nobody out. Long visit here with Mike Maddox and activity in the St. Louis bullpen. If you're a fan who appreciates stories about Cardinals baseball that go beyond 50 characters and 3 emojis, well, you're going to love the quality of Cardinals magazine. Don't miss the subscription offer featuring an exclusive Brock Gibson tribute tee. Cardinals.com/magazine 3459000. Second and third, still nobody out. And the first pitch taken for his strike by Roman Quinn.
Roman Quinn, a little bit over the years with the Phillies, speedy outfielder. Now here's a guy who is a pure center fielder.
The 0-1. Chopped foul and out of play. 0-2.
Thank you.
Cardinals have a right-hander getting loose in their pen. 20 pitches already for Thompson. And still nobody out. Inning started with a base hit to center, then a walk, infield hit, and the double into right center to plate 2.
The little advantage that Roman Quinn has to kind of get people's attention. He's a switch hitter as well as a very good center fielder.
And the 0-2 pitch taken high. 1-2.
Let's see right now with Thompson. He shows that 2-strike fastball up above the zone. Does he want to show the breaking ball now down off of it? See if he can get Roman Quinn to swing over it.
The 1-2. Got him. Good breaking ball there.
That's the pitch set up by the fastball up in the zone. Good job by Thompson to come back after giving up that double in the gap. But the velocity has been there for Thompson. And this pitch, I mean, it's a strike. He'd probably like to bury it even more, but that 95 up above the zone really set that up.
But to this point of the inning, probably the best pitch he's made this inning.
You're right.
Jerrer Encarnacion, first plate appearance for the Marlins. An outfielder for Don Mattingly's club. And he pops one foul and out of play to the right.
I'd have to think that Don Mattingly likes that right there. Just letting it rip. First pitch, you get a fastball. That's what you want to see in a situation where you can drive in some runs.
A base hit could tie it up. Go ahead, run at the plate. Here's an 0-1 pitch by Thompson. 0-2 the count.
Guy who's used to this ballpark. A few years ago played for Jupiter, the Hammerheads. At that time a high A club. You were talking about it, Brad, earlier. A little different now.
We've talked about before, if you have offensive success in this league, you're doing something right, especially if you're putting up some power numbers.
Because you're playing in a lot of pitchers' parks.
Yes, you are.
And it's hot during the summer.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Pitch number 26 of the inning. And he got him. So back-to-back Ks for Thompson, trying to limit this damage.
Zach Thompson pulls a string on this one too. We've seen the fastball at 95. We saw the hook that ended up getting Roman Quinn. This time it's a changeup. 89 miles an hour. Good late life on it. Spots the corner. See if he can leave these two stranded.
And the batter now, Eric Gonzalez. Runners at second and third and 2 down after back-to-back strikeouts. The 1-0 pitch by Thompson. You see him kind of slow up a little bit, Brad, on that breaking ball.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get that feel for it still. Trying to get his body in sync a little bit. And the key is in a situation like this, you've already given up that double, score a few runs. You got to stay in control. You got to keep your body back a little bit. Just let the arm do the work.
And it's a count of 2 balls and 1 strike.
That's something that I personally had a bad habit and a tendency of doing in a situation. My body would rush a little bit. As soon as that happens, the arm drops and you don't execute the way that you want. And all of a sudden you're doing cardio, Tommy. You find yourself backing up bases a lot.
Well, and trust me, a hitter picks that up too. If a pitcher slows up a little bit on certain pitches, speeds up on others. We're not dumb, you know.
Wow, look, I should have given you guys more credit when I look at the back of my baseball card. I just figured nobody would know a sinker was coming every time.
3 balls and 1
like
strike.
you said earlier, whatever happened to the sinker slider guy?
That's it.
Used to go over pitchers meetings. They go, yeah, this guy sinker slider.
He's going to come back. It's going to happen one of these days, but he's going to be throwing 101.
And taking just a bit low. So the 2-out walk that'll load up the bases. And will they go get him here? A couple of walks in the inning, and Ali Marmol will go to his bullpen with the bases loaded. So that'll be it for Zach Thompson. He gets a couple of strikeouts, but allows 3 hits, a couple of runs, and a pitching change. I'll tell you about the change when we come back. 4-2 our score with 2 outs and the bases loaded. And the Cardinals turn to a right-hander from Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Looking forward to watching this.
Well, James Nail gets the opportunity here in this one to come out. You get a runner on second and third. We've been spending a lot of this time today talking about different opportunities here. Well, it's a good one. Good one for Nail, who predominantly has been a starting pitcher throughout the minor leagues, but last year made the transition to the bullpen, pitching over 50 games. Might have found himself a new home.
Ditter is at the plate with the bases loaded.
Ready here, Bert.
First pitch by Nail is taken low for ball 1.
That's another transition I think we may see over the years, is a ball club, especially a bullpen, having a guy or two that used to be a starter that can give you 3 or 4 innings instead of having 6 or 7 guys down there who just throw 1.
I think it's valuable. I really do, Tommy. I think that, and we're going to see the Cardinals have a little bit of that, and that was the plan for Cardinal fans. No, Alex Reyes was going to be battling it out for that 5th starter spot, but could have been that hybrid role in the middle. When you got a lot of innings to eat up, it's nice to be able to have guys that have reverse splits, that can get righties and lefties out. I hope you're right. I hope we do see more.
So 2 outs, bases loaded. And the next pitch taken inside, count of 2 balls and 1 strike. The next by Nail is a foul ball off the shin or foot of Ray Patrick Ditter.
You see that good sink late life off Nail. I think just boring in on the right-hander. You get a lot of swings like that, and for me, once I've seen that and once that has happened, and there's a great look at it right there, and that hurts. I mean, and Tommy, you can speak to that. As a pitcher, oftentimes you have a tendency to go right back in there because we're mean.
What do you think of some of the major leaguers from Aruba? We talked about Ditter from Aruba. Xander Bogaerts being one.
He just missed, and a full count, so they're off to the races on this next pitch.
Remember Sidney Ponson?
Oh, yeah. Pitched with the Cardinals for a bit.
Last year, 29 bases loaded walks for the Cardinals. 29.
Some say too many.
Yeah, I'd be in that group. 3-2 pitch.
Out of way.
It's one of those as a fan, as a manager, if you're managing that team who's walking something, it's just like you're giving the other team something. You're
Absolutely.
just handing it to them on a platter.
And that was part of that June that the Cardinals had, and then they went out and got Wade LeBlanc, who settled things down. Of all players, Wade LeBlanc threw strikes.
He did, and just confident. He went out there. He knew what was behind him. Hey, go ahead and hit it. Somebody's going to snag it.
The 3-2 pitch. Runners go, and we'll do it again.
Oh, it's
This has
good
been
battling.
painful at bat.
Two off the foot and ankle is not a comfortable at bat, but it's an at bat that can be positive. He's had a couple of good swings. He's battling with the count full, with the bases loaded.
And Tommy, I'm positive he's going to need ice after this one.
This is the one where you hit the little infield chopper and you have to leg it out.
Of course. and you know he will too,
That
because
looked like got him on the toe.
you got to earn that. You've already paid for this at bat. You might as well get something for it.
He hasn't been in camp long enough to have all the extra padding. You know, the guard, the shin guard, the ankle guard. You got to be around a while to get that stuff.
Yeah, too much flair early.
Yeah.
3-2 pitch again. And he walked him, so bases loaded walk, and that'll make it a 4-3 St. Louis lead. All 3 runs for the Marlins in this inning. And they've received 3 walks in the inning. Bases stay loaded with 2 down. The aforementioned J.J. Bleday, one of the top prospects for the Marlins, getting a chance here.
And by the way, that was a well-earned walk.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, J.J. put on maybe 15, 20 pounds. Feels much better.
Well, he does look different
He
physically.
felt comfortable at the plate. Really got things going, too, in the Arizona Fall League.
And Bleday chops one foul. And that's strike 1.
Tommy, how much of speed is speed an element in JJ's game?
It's not an element where you can expect stolen bases, but he runs well.
You always wonder about that when guys add on a little bit of bulk.
I think if you're a base stealer, you'd have to be careful in doing that.
Nothing in 2. Well, he gets a strikeout. Not a pretty inning for St. Louis. Marlins pick up 3. They cut the lead to 4-3 midway through 8. St. Louis Cardinals baseball on Valley Sports Midwest is brought to you by Chevrolet, the #1 selling vehicle in the St. Louis area. Find yours at your Mid-America Chevy dealer. By Great Southern Bank, understanding what really matters. By Shelter Insurance for your home, auto, and life. We're your shield, we're your shelter. And by Budweiser, this Bud's for you. Always fun to have our split telecast here in spring training. Tommy Hutton for the Miami Marlins side of things. Brad Thompson, Dan McLaughlin. And a lead of 1 run for St. Louis as we move to the home half of the 8th. It's 4-3. New pitcher in for Miami, as Lucan Baker will have his first plate appearance of the afternoon.
Yeah, Lewis Head is the new pitcher. We saw him some last year with the Tampa Bay Rays and did a nice job. 27 games at a 2.31 ERA. Won a couple, but a lot of time in the minor leagues for Head. He's 31 years old. Drafted quite a while ago, back in 2012 by the Indians.
Lucan Baker at the plate, power hitter, had really a big season a year ago as he whacks one to right field. Wind Not blowing nearly as hard as it was earlier, and the catch made for the first out.
Yeah, still picking the wrong part of the ballpark.
Yep.
You're right. 26 home runs for him last year, and a guy that is a threat every time he steps up.
Nolan Gorman's second plate appearance, struck out his first time up.
I think one of the things when you have a guy who's had a big AAA season or AA season, you want to make sure that swing's not too big, because up at this level they can take care of that big swing in a hurry.
Off the plate in ball one to Gorman.
I think that's a really good point too, Tommy, and it's something that minor league coaches really have to key in on. Like, you can see success, but if there's a tweak to be made, better to do it early, right? You don't want to mess with a player, really. You don't want to mess him up, but you also want to be able to help him take those next steps.
It's a fine line of telling a kid who's having success in AA or AAA that maybe that's not going to translate at the major league level. It's a fine line to tell that kid that, because that kid's having success. Why? You want me to change?
It's something that the Cardinals talk about with Nolan Gorman. Now here's one of the top prospects, not just with the Cardinals, but in the top 50 of Major League Baseball, and it's a short swing. I mean, he's willing to take the ball the other way, but yet still hits for power. The 1-2 pitch couldn't hold up, and a swing and a miss, and there's two away here in the bottom of the eighth. Cardinals have a right-hander getting loose in their pen, looking at to the top of the ninth. Connor Capel at the plate. 2 outs and nobody on, and the first pitch taken for a strike. Well, Brad, this is for us our first game outside of a studio for a road game, if you want to call this a road game, and it's nice to be back at the ballpark.
I got to tell you, this feels good.
Oh, man.
It feels good. A little something different to it.
My heart went out to all the play-by-play and color analysts who had to do games from a studio, because it's just not the same.
No.
You don't get the feel. There are things you don't see.
The access to the team, talking to the players, the coaches, the manager. And
well, Dan, you could have zoomed that. You could have done that on Zoom.
Of course, I did it many times, Tommy, and wasn't going to shortchange the fans, but you know what? It's just great to be at the ballpark. We had to do what we had to do, and if that was the way to do the games, then so be it. Just to have the games back on in 2020 was great. I thought it was great for people that love the sport or love sports in general, and we did the best we could. Same thing last year, but nothing replaces being at the ballpark. Count of 2-2 with 2 outs and nobody on. Full count on Capel. Seeing a lot of time in this spring. One of the young prospects for St. Louis. The 3-2 pitch, and he walked him. Get another look at center fielder Scott Hurst, who was called up last season. A guy we did not hear a lot about, but yet he was a call-up, and we know he can play defense. It'll be just whether the offense can rise to the level to match that defense. He's a very good defensive player.
He really is, and the Cardinals churned through a lot of outfielders until they finally started to get that mix right. You mentioned Lars Newbar earlier, who emerged from this group, but a lot of talented outfielders in the organization.
Up and in, and that's a ball.
Well, you had Gold Glover Harrison Bader out there in center field.
And Harrison Bader, we don't talk about it as much because you have a lot of other guys that put up big offensive numbers, but offensively the last 2 years, I mean, he has really made some strides.
Yeah.
He struggled mightily in his career against right-handers. That last year he actually was better against righties than he was against lefties. A very positive sign.
Well, the numbers, they bear it out. When O'Neill and Bader were in the same lineup, and O'Neill had a couple of times on the injured list, Bader did as well. He was out with a cracked rib. But when they were healthy enough to play, this team won, and won a lot of games. Now, you could look at their defense. Both were Gold Glovers. But Tyler O'Neill was an MVP candidate by the end of the year. He figured it out and was tremendous, and Bader just getting better and better offensively. So those two came into their own last year.
You couple that with the young Dylan Carlson making his strides also from the shortened 2020 season to last year, and you expect that even more this year.
Here's a 1-1 pitch to Hurst, and he slaps it foul and out of play.
Yeah, I love talking about the defense, and I'm thinking about Marlins defensively, and with Brian Anderson at third, he's been solid. Miguel Rojas, we all think someday could and should win a Gold Glove. Jazz is flashy, needs to concentrate on making that routine play, but he's tremendous. Jesus Aguilar, for a big guy, very agile, good hands over first base. And now they have Jacob Stallings behind the plate, who won a Gold Glove last year.
In the air, out to left center, and the catch is made. It's a one-run ball game as we move to the ninth. And St. Louis on top, 4-3. Cardinals with a lead of 4-3 as we move to the ninth inning. Marlins have out hit the Cardinals 6-5, and Andre Palante is in for St. Louis. And this is a young man that the Cardinals are very high on. And there's some that you hear about, like a Nolan Gorman, Liberatore being another one. Palante is kind of under the radar. Jake Walsh under the radar, but guys that could make an impact at some point this year.
Yeah, certainly could. And Jake Walsh, I heard some raving reviews about him the other day after he got the opportunity to throw in a ball game. But Palante, same thing. He was added to the 40-man roster this offseason, and he'll get an opportunity. Another guy that can provide some depth for you. Has been a starter throughout the minor leagues, but we all know this. It doesn't matter what you're doing in the minors. If there's a need in the majors, if you're the guy that's throwing the ball well, you're going to get the call.
Just a nice day here at Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter, Florida. Spring training baseball. Nick Fortes. And the first pitch taken for a strike.
Nick got himself a base hit, scored a run back in the 8th inning, got things going in that inning.
It was a base hit to center, then there was a walk, an infield hit, the double that brought in 2 back-to-back strikeouts, then a walk to load him up, and then a bases loaded walk.
Oh, wait.
One ball and 1 strike. Next telecast on Bally Sports Midwest will be Friday, and we'll have Saturday's game as well. That's the next telecast for Fox Sports Florida. Taken there at third, low throw in the stretch by Baker, and there's the first out here in the 9th inning.
Yeah, we'll have Bally Sports all over this, Dan.
Oh, we're all over it, Tommy. We have been for many years. Paul Severino will be your play-by-play man.
We talked about we talked about the multiple analysts, but Paul will be settled in for every game this year.
Keeping you in check.
He'll have to get used to all of us.
Well,
Dan, you know something about that.
I was going to say, been there, done that. Paul will be just fine. Capable hands of these former great pro athletes like Brad and yourself. I mean, doesn't get much better.
We got you covered.
So 1 out and nobody on, and a count of 0-1. And Burdick is swinging a miss, and nothing in 2.
Registered 99 on the gun. Palante showing off that big arm. As a starter, usually sits in the mid-90s, but coming out of the pen, he's letting it rip a little bit, and it's an unorthodox, mechanically, kind of coming over the top, a little herky-jerky, got the good slider to go with it.
The 0-2.
It's funny how some pitchers, the Marlins had a youngster last year, Jordan Holloway. As a starter, his numbers just didn't work. But every time he worked out of the bullpen, he just seemed to throw the ball well, and actually had some terrific numbers out of the bullpen.
Was he airing it out more as a
little bit more?
Guy?
He just looked like he had more confidence.
I think that for some guys, the build-up for starting ends up being a lot. A good spot right there on the inner half. I feel like sometimes when the phone rings, you just get the adrenaline going. You get out there, there's not time to think about it, and you let your talent take over. Instead of having a few days in between, you're thinking about it the night beforehand. It can be a lot for some guys.
You know, Tommy, I know you're a baseball historian, so I would assume that you'll...
That just means I've been around a long time.
Not at all. I know you study a lot. Here's a 2-2 pitch by Palante. Do you know who holds the consecutive innings scoreless streak in minor league baseball?
That's a tough one.
I know you need to think about it, Brad. Look directly to your left.
Don't think about any good pitches.
Would it be one Brad Thompson?
You got it.
Nailed it.
Wow. What,
starter back then.
Rookie ball or AAA?
I was AA.
AA.
And I don't remember exactly what it was as far as innings. 57 and 2/3.
57 and 2/3. Just rolls off the tongue. You had to look at that.
Yeah. And then it went downhill, Tommy.
Then he went to be a reliever in the big leagues.
It went downhill.
But that's you know what? That's remarkable. It doesn't matter where it was.
Sometimes you have to do something remarkable to get on the map.
To get here.
I was never what they called a prospect or sought after, or nobody ever used the term bonus baby. But you never know, right? Get a uniform, go out there and do your thing.
John Birdie, the final hope here for the Marlins, with 2 outs, nobody on, and Miami trailing by a run here in the top of the 9th.
Hey, when I signed, Tommy Lasorda said he signed me for $210,000. $10,000 cash and $200,000 worth of advice.
Here's a 1-0 pitch. Get out of play. But you were talking about going from starting to relieving, which is something you did obviously in the big leagues.
Yeah, and versatility. We talked about it during the broadcast from a position player standpoint. It's nice to be able to bounce all over the place. Well, it's great for a manager to have somebody that can do that. You need a swing guy who can start a game for you and then find himself right back in the bullpen. Then great. And physically, it's important to be able to have it. But mentally, you have to have that too. You have to be able to understand your role. Good pitch.
How about you? This guy's got some nasty stuff, man.
Well, I think about it as a hitter, right, Tommy? You're gearing up for 98, 99 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden that thing slides in there. That's tough to be able to cover both of those.
You can't. I mean, if you're geared up for plus 95, it's tough to adjust to any other stuff.
And the 1-2 pitch. Palante ends it with a strikeout. Look at that pitch. Wow. Woo.
I might see him this year.
Yeah. Well, the Cardinals are undefeated now in spring training. They're 4-0, and Miami drops their first game of the Grapefruit League. They're now 3-1. So the Cardinals win it by the final of 4-3. The spring training rolls on here at Roger Dean Stadium in Jupiter. Back to wrap it up in a moment.